o'clock. And the following board members are in attendance: Karonda Timish, Catherine Sells, Christy Hassett, Tracy Miller, Jenny Prosnick, Angie Cox. Ms. Allison Lazan is unable to attend tonight. Ms. Timish will be leading us in prayer.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for the opportunity for us to continue to work and just to work together as a district for the plans for our school year. We're really excited about the opportunities that we have upcoming. I just pray for your hand of blessing on our time tonight as we make decisions, that you would really just bring to mind the things that we need to discuss, and that we would be thoughtful in our questions, Lord, and that you would just direct us. We just pray for each child that is preparing for school, for the teachers that are hard at work, and I also pray specifically for the convocation on Wednesday, Lord, that would be an opportunity for the entire LISD body to be together and really be encouraged and unified as we begin the 2018 and 2019 year. And thank you for this opportunity to work tonight. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Timish. Please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Looks like we have our mission statement tonight by Dr. Rapp.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cox. Our vision statement and our mission statement: all of our students enjoy thriving, productive lives in a future they create, and our students, staff, and community design and implement a learning organization that provides engaging, innovative experiences every day. Our I statement for this evening is I model lifelong learning, and I'm pleased to share with you just a quick snapshot of the learning that's taken place this summer. We had 855 professional learning sessions providing 3,798 hours of learning offered from June 11th to August the 5th. And what's so important to note about those offerings is that these sessions were provided by our own LISD staff and experts. Professional learning sessions are offered in person and online. We've seen a growth in our online offerings, and I'll be excited to share those numbers with you in September. And of course, our large format professional learning systems sessions that support our leaders in learning and our teachers, our Thrive Leadership Conference, which we're very appreciative for so many of you being able to come to that at different points throughout that week. Our support staff conference, our new employee U, and then, as Ms. Timish said in her prayer, our convocation that happens on Wednesday, which we're looking very forward to. So we're proud of the learning sessions that happen and how we support our teachers and staff in being lifelong learners.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. Dr. Rogers, discussion items.
We'll turn it back to Dr. Rapp for learning and teaching report, and tonight is on campus profiles.
I'm going to ask Dr. Fitzhugh to come on up to the mic and share with you our information this evening about campus profiles. We are excited about the work that's taken place to make these a reality. It's been a collaborative effort between Dr. Fitzhugh's department, our campus staff, and communications, alongside our schools and student activities with the assistant chiefs to pull this all together. So we're pleased to share these with you this evening, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Fitzhugh.
Okay, so good evening. As Dr. Rapp said, is this close enough? As Dr. Rapp said, this is our first venture into our campus profiles, and we're really excited for what we have to show you tonight. I'm going to start off. Everyone here, I believe, has seen this slide of one of our kind of layouts of how we're looking at data and how we're trying to bring all of the data together. We have a state accountability system that puts out a lot of data based on STAR, and then we have some local pieces. And our campus profile is us reporting out on a lot of those different pieces of data. And so we really viewed this as a way for us to tell our stories. We wanted community to know everything that our school does besides STAR testing. There are many, many pieces of data here, and so we're really excited to be able to present this to the community and to you as kind of a representation of some of the things that our schools are doing. We also are part of a consortium with 62 other districts that are looking to form local accountability systems, and we're hoping that this can be the base for our local accountability system as we move forward. we're really just trying to branch out from what the state is putting in place. So the timeline that we've used for this, we started way back in the spring of 2017, meeting with principals, meeting with different folks, trying to figure out what types of data pieces they would like to see in a campus profile. And then throughout that, we have surveyed the community, we've surveyed our seniors, we've spent a lot of time developing a template for what it could look like. So a lot of time and effort has gone into looking at that, and we're still making some final tweaks. So we're hoping to get these put out here mid-August on our webpage. That's our next step. In your packet, you have a set of 6 samples. There's 2 elementary school, there's 2 middle, a 9th grade campus, and then one of our high schools. And you can kind of see the front and the back. They're pretty standard, but all have a different story on them that tells what their campus is about. We've tried to bring in quantitative and qualitative data, because I think that's the piece that we miss a lot of time, is that education is not a number crunching business in everything that we do. So we're really trying to let everyone tell their stories. The next slide, and this is in your packet as well. These are all of the different data sources we were able to incorporate into our campus profile this year. So the results from the parent surveys are in there, the results from the senior surveys. We have advanced course completions for our middle schools and high schools. We have iStation data. We have professional learning hours. We do a lot of work with our staff on professional learning, and so we've broken that down. We have how often our campus administrators walk through our classrooms to observe teaching. So we have tried to bring in as many different data points as possible to give as robust of an experience for students as represented there. Our future actions, we're hoping to get these on the webpage here in the next week. That's our goal. We have some little tweaks we need to still make on a few of them. We're still working to develop a flyer to send home. We're required to send home the state accountability reports with our first report cards, so we would like to send this in conjunction. So it's our story with the state mandated story. We're going to continue to develop metrics. We have several that we're working on for the board dashboard that we would like to see incorporated into the campus profile, as well as we work to grab those data pieces. And we're going to continue to work with the consortiums we're in. We're part of TPAC, which is the state group. And then we also participate in a group called Redefining Ready, which is by AASA, and it's national level, looking at all the different ways that we can show that students are career and college ready beyond state mandated testing. We really want to continue to lead in this area. We feel very passionately about the fact that our students are not just a state mandated test score, and this is our baseline, our first year at trying to show that story for all of our campuses. And we just have to remember that not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. And even as I tried to cite the quote, it got kind of iffy with who really said it. So, I mean, like, the fact that you can't really document, not everything can be counted, and that's okay. We have to be okay with that sometimes. And that's my presentation for this evening.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. Sorry. All right, Mr. Miller, we're going to start on this end if you have any questions.
Not really any I think these are great, by the way. So a couple things. One is I appreciate us leading in this area, and it's not a real surprise that I've not been big on kind of the North Texas Council or whatever, right, the regional consortiums, because I don't see much come out of them. This is what I think the Visioning Institute, what I know it was intended to be was, hey, districts, give us some way to look at accountability in a different way. So this is fantastic, and I know you've done a lot of work on it yourself, Dr. Fitzhugh, and others, and I'm sure Ms. Hassett's going to jump on board on this too. But this is a great start, and I don't say it's a great start because I think there's something should be added. I don't know. I'm not the expert, so I'll trust you guys. And I hope that we're playing this is one where I would hope that we're investing in financially in you being a leader of those 62 because you had a chance to tell who I think will be the next Speaker of the House in the state of Texas, seriously, the story. And I saw his face when he realized some kids have to fail in the state of Texas. And so this is the district to tell that story, and I think it's carpe diem for us, and so thank you on that. The only other thing that I think about is as we present these to the public, right, as we make them available, some type of FAQ that kind of normalizes this. So when somebody, for example, I think at the end of the school year, I got a call from a parent. They were moving into this area, and they looked at some scores. I think I saw on our church Facebook page. I jumped right in, and I'm like, hey, that's the wrong thing to look at. I probably should have had Christy do it for me. But, I mean, really, it got me, it infuriated me, because any one of those schools I would send my granddaughter to. And so I don't know if there's a way for us as we present these, right? What's going to happen is when they go to look at a charter or another school district, they're going to look and go, wow, that's pretty cool. How does that make sense? Like maybe some contextualization, just consider, how we would, why it's got to be more than the test score. And this, again, it's a great, this is just fantastic. So I just feel like this is a big moment. Really, I do. So thank you.
Question?
No, I just want to endorse it.
Lots of comments. Thank you.
Lots of hours.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Sells?
Yeah, I love this. I love how it reads. I just want to make sure that we're telling the story to beyond just our own parents. We already have them captured. And I really hope that we have in the future a plan to share these and to have a process in place that when somebody is looking at another site, that we can tag these easily in response and say, hey, here's the real story. What we see, and here's what is not just a few people who maybe have not had the best experience bringing a school down on a random site that a lot of times those popping up and daily, and I've never heard of some that people are talking about. So just want to make sure that I love these, want to make sure they stay fresh, the information on them stays relevant. So that's not really a question.
Ms. Sells, Ms. Timish?
All right, thank you. Again, thank you for this presentation. I appreciate it. Would we be able to get a copy of each one of the campuses with these profiles for our records?
Yes, ma'am. We need to finalize. Like I said,
Right.
we have a few edits we still need to make, but as soon as they're available, I think that we can
You
get
can
those
give
to
each
you.
one of us for each one of the campuses, because I really like this snapshot. And then when it says that it's going to be released for the campus profiles, more than, just going live on the website, are we going to push it out like on social media and really promote? Because I think this is a great sales story. I just want, because when it goes live, parents don't always know to go and check it. So I want to make sure that we're pushing it out. Is there a marketing or?
So that's one of the things we've worked with communications on. We're going to put them on the website first, but we're working on a ledger size that can fold. That'll have an intro letter, it'll have the profile, and then it'll have state accountability on the back. So we'll send that home with every student. We're going to do some email as well. That's just going to happen a little bit later in the fall because we've got to put all those pieces together.
Okay, so I guess just for me, I guess I really like this, and even just saying a tweet of,
That it's
we're more than a
available.
score, this has been released if you want to find it.
I'm sure we can do that.
And Sarah, to share this, would it be best just to give them a link that they could connect to all 69, versus 69 different?
That's actually, it's gonna be on the district website. Every single one of them will be listed on one page so
And
that
you can
anybody can
click on
find
it.
what they
Yes.
want.
Okay.
And then it'll be listed on the campus pages as well.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. It's just, I guess maybe because I'm tactile in my learning style, like just having this printed off is nice, just, as we're talking and making sure as people talk to us all the time, because I don't have memorized how many staff members are at every campus. But saying, oh, by the way, did you know, because I can't talk on my phone and do Wi-Fi at the same time. It's nice to have that.
Oh, we can get you a hard copy.
We can get you one. Yes, ma'am.
Great work, first of all. But I do concur with Ms. Timish that we need to tweet this out when accountability comes out. So, hey, the state just came out with this, but we need to say, hey, in the same tweet, go look at our newly created campus profiles. Totally agree that we have to start pushing that out quickly, and as well have them in the foldable brochure that's sent directly home with the parents. So that's great. Question though, for some of the data, like the iStation by grade level, is this always going to be last year's?
It is last year's because that's what we have, because we look at growth.
Right.
So I have to have a beginning and an end, so that's based on I'm already a little over 17-18 school year.
Okay, it's just some of those pieces of data, it might be more helpful just to have a date reference. People probably would assume that at the end of the school year, but if I've got this and I don't have a date on it, I don't know when I printed it. And just
So
as
we've made a
reference.
glossary to go with it. That's
Okay.
a resource that will be on the webpage linked to it, so they can find all the data sources that we've used in the year that they're from. It got a little congested trying to put those for
It's
every
a
data
lot of
point.
information in here.
So we
anyway.
have worked on a glossary for each level that will be available.
Okay, just a reference point so that they know when it's from. But that's all. Thank you.
And Ms. Hassett, we are, when the state releases accountability, we also been crafting a letter from me to our parents to talk about the fallacies of the state system.
How about an op-ed as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
A blimp.
Okay, sorry, Ms. Prosnick.
No worries. I do have a great work. You know, I'm all on board. I was privileged enough to see this at our curriculum meetings and things of that nature. But I do have a couple of concerns, okay? I'm looking at Flower Mound 9th grade campus. This is more Flower Mound High School because that's how we have reported to TA now. All of our high schools are grouped together. And so while at Flower Mound 9th grade campus it might work, how is that going to work for Killow or Harmon? How am I going to be able to see what is unique and special about Harmon versus what am I going to see that is unique and special about Killow instead of just getting the SAT and the ACT scores for LHS?
So the pieces that we have been able to individualize all the staffing and professional learning, that's all specific to the campus. The advanced courses, I believe, are all specific to the campus. The pieces that are not are the ACT, the SAT, and the graduation rate. All of the clubs, all of the awards. Now, the campuses might have selected to pair together because there's some things they do jointly. Their student council awards, they have in 9th to 12th grade. So there is some overlap with that, but each principal submitted their own pieces for those clubs, community service, partnerships, and awards on the back.
The
Programs.
parent survey, Sarah.
The parent survey is also separated out, that's true. The senior survey is the same because we felt like they have gone through that whole program, so that should speak back to the 9th grade campus. It was part of their high school experience, but
It's just a little bit more difficult with LHS.
It is.
I mean, to differentiate that. I guess I would like that, like the distinctions, are those distinctions?
no, because the campus is all together.
So
my
that
hope-
is the whole high school.
The distinction piece, we're working on some new metrics, and I would like to put some of those metrics in that spot for right now, but we just didn't have all that ready to go this year. We
And
have
I-
to do some data
I
gathering.
do think the one thing I'd add to that, because I agree that we wrestled with ensuring the 9th grade had pieces that belonged to them and not just to the 10 through 12s or 11 and 12s. I think the board dashboard is going to really help us with additional metrics. This is where I think that continuum, so that work that's going into the board dashboard will give us some different data that we can take a look at to put in here. So we definitely know year one, this was where we started, but we're cognizant of where we end up in year 2 and year 3 will probably look even better and a little bit different.
And I don't want you to think I'm just here to criticize.
No, that's a good question.
But I just don't want it to be a mixed message. All of our campuses are individuals and have individual things on them, and yet we're using the whole high school data for some of those data points. And I guess, is that going to be in the glossary that you provide?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess as a Flower Mound 9th grade parent, would look at that and think, wow, in ninth grade, you get a 25.9 on your ACT. No, that's a Flower Mound High School.
I understand.
So I don't know how to distinguish that on here. But I just want that to be clear.
I think the other piece we wrestled with in that is a lot of times when parents are they're looking for the 9th through 12th grade experience, they don't look for 9th grade. So we felt we should include that because that's kind of the end of that education street, I guess. So we included it, but I hear what you're saying, and I think there's some pieces we can look at to help them continue to be individual.
I guess just a note.
I gotcha.
But no, really good work. I mean, this is beautiful. It's even prettier than the one that you gave us way back when. So really good work and good way of showing that our kids are definitely more than a test.
And just me to wrap it up, in case you haven't been told, great job by anyone. So thank you to, I know it wasn't just you, so it was a team of people, so thank you to everybody who played a part, because I think this really will lead the path for LISD. My only question is, I'm looking at it from a marketing perspective. I'm working in real estate. People, when they're trying to decide where to move, that's the first thing they look at. So I don't know where it's going to be on the website, but if it could be in a prominent area, that would be a drop down. This is a great snapshot, so because they're not going to go onto the websites to look through all that. They want a quick synopsis of, okay, do I want Flower Mound, Hebron? What am I looking at here? What are these schools offering? And this is a great snapshot. So it's just my two
More comments. Are there any plans to our legislators? I think a letter from Dr. Rogers along with these around that same time would be impactful, to say the least, because I think that some of them believe what they're told, not the actuality of it. And also, is there going to be anywhere with our new construction with our parent welcome center that these are all available in, because some parents may not have that ability to download and print out a beautiful copy like this, but also to make this available to our realtors and to make sure that our realtors have a place that if they're working with someone and want to pick up these, to include in a packet for a new relocation or whatever, that we make it easy for them.
Yeah.
So just a couple of comments.
And we'll make sure, we're going to have a chance to visit with our legislators soon. But we'll make sure when we send this out, when state accountability scores are, that we'll send them the whole package.
And Ms. Cox, if I could, I just want to kind of jump on the marketing thing. I agree, and actually, as Ms. Prosnick was speaking, so I get what you're saying, that they are looking for a 9 through 12 experience, no doubt about it. But to the extent that we can, how we decide to represent this digitally, that we can imagine a persona. I think to Ms. Sell's point, it's really not going to be a lot of our parents looking at this. I mean, it may be, but as soon as you get out of 5th grade, you really don't care what, right? And so to the extent that we can just think about, I'm on a journey, right? I'm trying to figure out, do I want I'm looking at a house in this area. At a high school level out in the county, it's going to be 2 schools, right? It's going to be either a 9-10 or a 9 and 10 through 12. And so somehow if we can present that to you, that this is what, if you're a parent thinking about Flower Mound 9, this is what you need to think about, right? I mean, to Ms. Prosnick's point, if we just can really think about that journey. I love the idea with the legislature. Legislative guys, here's the deal. First of all, if we get 2 to read them, we'll be lucky, right? There's 69. So I think we should do it, but I think we should position it, right? Here's the documents, because maybe somebody in staff, Zach Flores might read it, or somebody in Senator Nelson. But here's what this says to you guys, and here's kind of the executive overview. And then what I think they would do is, then they would use that executive overview to sell the whole packet. That makes sense.
I absolutely do, and I think that those high school profile pages are crucial, because as we hear, that our public schools are failing, well, these profile sheets show you a very different story.
Yeah.
And so I think that those high school ask questions where they're sending their kids, and you know what? I don't think you're gonna see what you see here. Just
Other comments?
I just want to say real quickly, thank you for all your thank yous to Dr. Fitzhugh. And when you see Nick Rooney too, really be sure and thank him, because he's worked lockstep with Sarah to get these in just the right shape. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ball, I think you're up. No? Dr. Rogers, sorry. Rest for a minute.
Just joking.
I promise you, I will punt it to Mr. Ball real quick. But the next item up for discussion is really trying to gauge the board's interest. We've talked about this, but the board's interest about real estate broker services, and our purchasing department did an RFQ, and so that's sort of described in front of you. I did want to tell you, and actually this is something that I discussed with Ms. Cox several months ago, but after our RFQ closed, another local commercial realtor approached me and said, hey, I missed the timeline, and of course, timeline is, whether we like it or not, I mean, it's published in some places, and we do, and it's not something that we felt was appropriate to reopen it up because someone missed the timeline. But I can certainly be more specific with you in the future if you want to know the particular person. But that's not the point. The point is, we followed the process, and so really at the end of this, we just need some direction of whether or not we want to move forward with having a real estate broker. And there is no doubt we have some tracts of land that we need and some property, with Timber Creek and with SSAB that we need to do something with in the future. And so we're just looking for some direction from the board tonight on this topic. So now, Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers, Ms. Cox. We did, as Dr. Rogers said, our procurement department under the leadership of Mr. Martin did solicit, we did have a request for qualifications process, had deadlines, and we did get 4 responses to that. And part of that publication of the request for qualifications was to develop the criteria. What are we looking for? And part of that had to do with 2 big parts of that had to do with we felt like we were looking for a firm that had experience in working with public school districts, marketing real estate, and the other thing is we felt like we wanted demonstrated competence, and so those are the 2 big pieces that we weighted more heavily in the criteria, and the others had to do with references and then just kind of a catch-all category called other relevant factors. And so we've looked at the respondent firms, and we've scored them based on things like their ability to do situational analysis and strategy development on a particular tract of land. What would be the highest and best use for a property of that nature, and based on their experience in those kinds of situations, and then their ability to do business case development and presentation to us for approval as we might market a particular property. And then part of that has to do also with a firm's access to potential buyers, and some of the respondent firms did a better job than others of showing their ability to have access to potential buyers. And then part of their experience has to do with research capabilities. And the property that the board has to consider whether or not it wants to dispose of really is across the district in some cases. Some of it's in different communities, and different parts of the district where the relevant factors might be very different, and so a firm that has the capability to do some research and know what the market looks like in those areas. And so that's kind of how we scored the firms. And so, as Dr. Rogers said, I think the key thing that really is a decision point is does the board want to engage a realtor, and if so, we have that all queued up for next Monday night's meeting, so that if the board does feel like it would like to engage a realtor, we're prepared to make those recommendations and present that to the board for an action item. If not, then certainly that item could be tabled. But we've got it queued up, so if the board wants to do that, we've got it set up. So I think tonight's mission, if you will, is to hear the board's direction in that regard, and is that something the board would like to consider? And if so, we'll be ready next Monday, and if not, we'll be ready to table that as well. So really just looking for direction from the board.
Okay, so we'll give our comments. So Ms. Sells, we'll start with you. And can you just move the mic up? Yes.
I think I'm torn. I believe that we could value their expertise. I'm torn in the cost to the district. And so I think I need to be sold on the value that they will bring to the table if we go ahead and move forward with that. And I think that that's the key for me. At one point, did we get a verification that we don't have to use them for every parcel? Or would that be something that anything we sell, would that be the contractual agreement with them?
That's a great question, Ms. Sells, and I think we're at a point in the continuum, if you will, on this that we could negotiate as if the board chooses to select a realtor. I think the next step would be to negotiate a contract with them. We did ask them for the fees in their responses, and so we have that, but we haven't gotten to the point with any of them of looking at what a contract would look like. And certainly I think that's a point that we would have some flexibility on.
I think there's some pieces, there's some of these parcels that I think would be a very easy sell and would go into multiple bidding. But I think that there's some that we really need that creative expertise in what can this property be used for and what could be brought to the table in getting us the best price for that. But at the end of the day, I want to bring as much money as I can if we sell these properties to offers. Money on the table for something that could have been just easily done by our staff.
Yes, and I think that in one of, if I'm correct with Mr. Ball, they said that our staff are not experts in real estate, and so I think that's was the beginning of this. For me, I support using a real estate broker service for a couple of reasons. I think that if we're looking for businesses to buy our land, they're in business because they want to make money and they're going to want the best price. And while I appreciate some of these businesses donate to the district, there's no guarantee that they're just going to give us a lot more money than what they would want to if they think they can negotiate it and use that as a tool, because we are not the experts. And so I think that we just cannot assume that a business, they're not charities, and they're not going to run it as a charity. So I want to make sure that we are getting the best value, that we're being good stewards. For me as a trustee, I want to be a good steward, and knowing that our district doesn't have the expertise in this, I think using a broker is important. I also think it leads to transparency and integrity for me, and the way I feel is that we're not picking and choose, like we want to sell to this person for a lower price because they're our buddy. We're using a broker who's professional, who knows the value and can say this is what it's worth, and that nobody can come back and say, you know, we're trying to use a good old boy system. That just, we've got somebody that's an expert and that can bring that to the table.
Those are great points, Ms. Timish. I think one of the big factors that we've considered as we've evaluated what data to collect to bring to the board for your consideration, one of the things that we've realized is that the level of sophistication of a buyer who would buy the property at the price points that at least some of our properties would be at, these are sophisticated people who have a staff of attorneys and real estate experts and other consultants that do this every day. This is their livelihood, and while we have great people, we've got a fantastic procurement department, we've got a great legal department, we've got people who are good people, but we don't do this every day. We're not in the business of selling real estate, and so we felt like in doing our due diligence as your administration would be to, if we're going to go to the table to negotiate a real estate deal, we wanted to have the same level of sophisticated experts at the table as the folks on the other side of the table. That was kind of our thinking.
I agree with Ms. Tinch. I think that it's a good use of resources because staff can focus on regular business for the district. And we have a plethora of, if it was just land, I think I would be leaning toward not, but we do have so many properties that actually have buildings that would require someone who has a lot more knowledge. Then our staff could spend time. And another thing that I've spoken with Dr. Rogers about a few times before is if we are going to go with a broker, a contract I think would be a must. And I definitely think for the larger tracts of land, we have to once again think about deed restricting to residential. I've been doing lots of number crunching. We still get slightly more property tax revenue from residential than we do from just the generic other properties around the district, and we also get students. So even if we might get slightly more on a sell than we would if we restricted just to deed, it would only be a slight difference in the sales price, and we would get that back quickly with the additional property revenue that we would get, as well as the students. We've been talking about the fact that we need students, and I think it's irresponsible to not put into a contract that if we're selling our larger tracts of land, that it has to benefit the district long term. We can't just simply short-sightedly look at what we can get for it today. So that's something I really strongly believe in, so that we have to help the district as we go forward with the larger tracts of land that would be suitable for residential itself. So.
President? I'll begin with, I completely disagree in telling someone what they can do with land that they buy. That's my personal opinion, and I would not support that being in a contract.
Okay.
That's me. I have a couple of questions, and I'm assuming you're going to tell me that they would be in the contract. How long are we looking to have this contract? I mean, what's the length? I mean,
I think we did put that in the RFQ, and Mr. Martin, 2 years.
okay.
2 years. I'm sorry.
You did-
2 years and 2 options for total.
Okay. And then was there any in your rubric that you used? Was there anything about to Dr. Rogers' point before we began about being local? I mean, we're 127 square miles, and I looked up the companies that you have provided for Board Book next week, and I didn't see anybody in our 127 square miles.
We did not, Ms. Prosnick. That's a great question, and I think the same answer would be true of any solicitation that we do. We do not make part of the evaluation criteria whether or not someone is local. That's just, now we do make an effort, and in this case I think we did as well, to make sure that the opportunity is advertised locally so that people are aware of it. But to my knowledge, regardless of what kind of expert we're trying to whether it's attorneys or architects or anyone else, we have not, to my knowledge, made the location of their business part of the evaluation criteria.
support, using an agent, because I believe in using experts for expert things. But to Ms. Sell's point, I certainly think we have pieces of property that don't necessarily require the marketing that other pieces of property are, and I would certainly want that in the contract. And so I don't know how we do that, do you know what I mean? How we approve somebody, if you will, Monday night with caveat. That's a lawyer question. That's a procurement question. I don't know.
I think, as is often the case, that the action item could be something along the lines of to delegate the authority to provide us the guidelines that the board would like in a contract, and to delegate the authority to the superintendent or designee the authority to negotiate that and execute. And that, again, that's not uncommon based on the way we operate typically. But we would need to know what those parameters are that are important to the board.
That's all I got.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, so I have a few things, and just want to kind of provide an offsetting perspective with other trustees. It's not meant to be argumentative, because I think there's some great points. One, I think, I am struggling because I see value in experts. And I can see that we would have a limited amount of staff. The fact is, we have bought and sold a heck of a lot of property in LISD and never hired a broker to do the selling. So we have some pretty good expertise. Now, what I would probably hear in return is there may be a bandwidth issue, but if you look at the amount of money we're going to spend on a broker, which is probably in the millions, we could hire some staff that has some legal and real estate consulting capabilities to help us with that. So one thing to consider would be, I assume that there are real estate consultants that we can hire. They're not brokers that we have to pay 3 or 6% to, or 5%, whatever we negotiate. And we bring them in, and they have some type of legal expertise, etc. So there's that. The government code precludes us, limits, as a matter of transparency, any ability for us to sell land at a discounted rate to people that we know. So I just want to be clear on that. There is absolute, regardless of whether we use a broker or not, the government code has strong stipulations, unless we're selling it to another government entity, which we have done, as most of us have been on the board. I don't see value in some of our bigger piece of property. I think it'll be a feeding frenzy on those big pieces of land. I do think when you look at SSB and you look at Timber Creek, I think we should put some money behind trying to get somebody to try and sell those, because we've not been able to do that. So that's where I kind of go with the big properties. I'm not sure. With the ones like that have unique attributes, and a natatorium, and the SSB, etc. I think there might be some value in that. I think we should be, and this is no surprise. Ms. Hatt said I'm hesitant on deed restrictions. I don't discount the argument for deed restrictions, but I think when you look at what we have seen offers come to us recently, this is where we may have had a consultant give us better advice, because we did an appraisal, and the only way for that land to work is for someone to build $800,000 homes. It was a miss, where if we had an expert, maybe we would have seen. So what I'm struggling with is, once a property's valued by us, right? We paid for a valuation, right? It's my understanding that the government code or someplace limits our ability to sell that property at a discounted rate off of what the appraisal is. Is that a true statement?
I believe that's correct. I believe the appraised value. Now the question is, which appraisal? Because there are often conflicting appraisals.
Well, so that's fair. I don't remember how many we had. It may be, that's.
We had a couple.
Yeah. But I think that's where I think that's where getting some expertise does help. And I think when we went into that process, it was we were all trying to. I think Mr. Ball, you and your staff come back with recommendations. We have land that has some really large, strong value. The question is, should we spend $1 million to sell that land? Because let's just say it's worth $1 million, right? And we pay 60%. I mean, I'm making these numbers up to see if it works, but it just seems to me that there's some piece of land where it doesn't make sense to hire a broker. I think there's real estate consultants and other people. We bought all this land down here, this building. We didn't use a broker on our side that I recall, and I think the staff did a great job with it. So I'm struggling with that.
Well, that's a great point, Mr. Miller, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things that we discovered as we began to look at what are other districts doing, and looking at what kind of documents they use to solicit experts and in this area, one of the things that we realized is that a lot more districts are buying property than are selling property. We've been unable to find it's a small crowd of school districts that are actually disposing of property. The fast growth districts they're buying property, and they're not disposing of property typically. And so I think we find ourselves as a district in a bit of an unusual spot in that we do have a few properties that the board has, at least on a preliminary basis, expressed some willingness to sell, and that puts us in a bit of a small pack, if you will, of districts that are in that spot. And so there's not a lot. We don't have a lot of precedent, even in our own district, about selling property. We have a lot about purchasing property. So that's kind of that was one of the factors as we considered all of this.
Yeah. So the last thing for me is, and this is no disrespect to the process, because I haven't looked at the board book, so I don't know who the bidders are. I do know who wanted to come in later. We go out and partner on a facilities with a facilities team of 80 people that help us with the bond package. We have a security advisory team. We have a community advisory team for finances. We have, and almost all of us are either in Rotary or Chamber or something, could list off 5 people today that we could bring in as a kind of a committee, advisory committee, and give some consultation as a citizens committee to our staff. And I struggle with, how could anybody that doesn't do business here today, and really office here, in the fastest growing county in the nation, how is it that it's possible that somebody that doesn't reside here, doesn't live here, isn't always doing business here every day, knows this market better than anybody else? I'm getting the sense that those who bid, the recommendation may not be someone that's local, and I don't look at this like a tax collection firm or a law firm where it's got some different rules. It just to me is confusing that and again, we could name off these big commercial brokers, that someone outside of that would really have the expertise on knowing the market and who the buyers are and where the money is to fund these things. I think they're a pretty savvy group of people, and it would seem to me there's an opportunity for partnership rather than us agree next week, because if it's a binary vote, yes or no, I assume it's going to pass. That is a commitment to spend a lot of money. And I'm just not there yet. I think there's ways to tap our community for help in some fashion. And I know, Jeff, maybe there's some legal things here. I'm not trying to violate that, but it just doesn't seem right yet. It may be, but that's kind of where I'm at.
And Mr. Ball, I concur with a lot what the board says, and I think you're hearing from most of the board that, we would definitely want options in there, because I do feel that there are some properties out there that don't warrant a real real estate agent. They're primed for the selling, and the buyer's actually already out there, and I think has approached the district on a couple of properties already. But I do support hiring a real estate agent. I appreciate the process the district uses, and unfortunately, when people miss the deadlines, that's unfortunate, but it's not that we didn't offer it to local real estate people. It was out there, and unfortunately, they missed the deadline. But I would suggest having some clause in there, and maybe we do, but if this real estate agent doesn't perform or doesn't fit with the district or doesn't, isn't ethical, what are some options to terminate that contract? I wouldn't want to be obligated for 2 years and then not meet their obligation with the district. So
I would
there's
assume that there's an out clause
Oh, yes.
always.
We could put an out clause in there. Most all of our contracts have some sort of out clause.
I feel that real estate agents have the connections. They're experts in this industry. They know how to go outside of the box and go for not just Dallas, but out of state, other people that are looking to come into the community. Let's face it, we have a lot of California people coming in and buying up properties, and it's not just the DFW market. And I think that's what we have to look at and hire the expert that's going to get the district the best price that we deserve for our district.
Ms. Cox, if I may, I want to say this now so I don't have to say it next week. I don't disagree with anything you said. I think that there's a process. I don't know why someone missed it. But I think we've got to start being very thoughtful about while we need to adhere to the government code and procurement procedures and that type of thing. We've got to be very careful how often we continue to do big contracts outside of our community if those in our community that qualify could do the work, we're going to lose the support in the future of businesses and leaders coming to us or coming and helping us with future bond packages. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting we modify anything in our procurement process, etc. I think we've just got to be very thoughtful about how we do this. And that's why, for me, if the procurement process is to go outside of the district and hire someone, I just am uncomfortable sending a message that, once again, hey, we want you guys to help us when we need to sell a bond package, but really, most of the time you don't qualify for doing business with us. I'm not sure what that balance is, but I'm struggling with it.
I appreciate that, Mr. Miller. Ms. Hassett?
I agree with your preface that the business community wants to be involved with the district, and I think that they should. I think it's great when we make a better community when we do. I believe that business above all understands profit, and I think that I don't know who the person was that was late. I have no idea, but those individuals are running a business, and they are the ones more than school districts who understand profit above all, because that's not our role. So I think that just because something happened and they missed a deadline doesn't exclude them from continuing to be with the district. That's my personal opinion. And Austin ISD has recently sold property, and I can get that information to you, and they did deed restrict. So I can get all that information for you.
Austin ISD sold some property. They probably had to pay all those high recapture bills.
Mr. Ball, is it typical sometimes too in cases where the agent will give a portion back to the district or a reduced commission, so to speak, or is it always the full percentage? Looking at the
Certainly, everything's negotiable.
Right.
The fees are negotiable. Certainly, those are things we could talk to them about. We did not ask those questions in the RFQ, but we certainly could in negotiating a contract.
And remember, you really can't ask those questions in an RFQ, but I can promise you, we would sick Mr. Martin. I did want to ask a clarifying question. First off, the discussion's been good. So, and this is from Ms. Hassett and Ms. Timish, and I heard your perspective, just thinking ahead to next week, everyone else mentioned, possibly a mixed approach. Would y'all?
I'd support a mixed approach because I know that some of the larger tracks
Okay.
have had interest that we could do by ourselves. And
Okay,
not,
so that's at least something you would consider.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
for me, like in some of the pieces, it just would make, there was a few pieces that made sense with some of the people that already had offers. Nobody else is gonna want some of those
Yeah.
random pieces.
Right.
I didn't want us to work on that, this week and see what our options are.
I'm flexible.
Okay.
I would be more supportive of a hybrid model as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, is it Mr. Ball again?
It is.
Okay, Mr. Ball.
Oh, a really good news.
Oh, Mr. Ball, did you
Yeah,
bring bells and candy?
the
and
next
Christmas?
topic is,
Yeah, I'm gonna need the candy.
yeah, you might want the candy bowl for this one.
Pull
but-
up the mic.
But we have had a process through no
Great.
desire on our part,
Just
but
come up
we
here.
have had a process to procure commercial property insurance. As the board may recall, we had in 2017 we did an RFP for commercial property insurance and awarded that to the firm now known as USI, and about the same time that we were doing that, we had a big hailstorm in the spring of 2017, did about $15 million, 15.6 I believe, in damage to several of our campuses, and so that's the business, that's the policy that, and then this year we had another hailstorm in June the 6th, I believe, of this year that did about $5 million in damage. It just so happens that we got that damage report from the adjuster on Friday, August the 3rd. And so so that's kind of the background. On about May the 28th, we got a cancellation, or I'm sorry, not a cancellation, a non-renewal notice from AIG, which is the insurance carrier that has our policy for the current policy year. And that coverage expires August 31. So May the 28th, they send us a non-renewal notice. Up until that date, our plan had been to get their pricing for the next year and bring that to the board for renewal. And because they non-renewed, that forced us then to, with a very short time frame for that sort of process, to go to the market with a request for proposals. We did that. We really only had one complete response, and so then we had to assign the markets. You may know in the insurance business, the companies will block the markets, but their term for markets is really insurance companies. So they will block insurance companies so that no other agent can get a quote from them. And so what we had to do is that one respondent that we had to write a letter assigning the markets to them because they were the only response that met our criteria through this competitive process. And so then they committed to giving us pricing that we would have tonight to present to the board. And then unbeknownst to any of us, the adjuster showed up Friday with the numbers for the June 6th hailstorm, and they felt that they, being USI, the agent, felt that they were compelled to provide that information to all of the respondent insurance companies, and now they've delayed. It's going to be tomorrow evening that they've committed to having pricing for us. All of the indications are that we will have significant price increases for the policy period starting September 1st. Also, the thing, and we did put in the board book information for this meeting, a little graphic illustration of what the coverage is likely to look like, and it is what the insurance folks call a layered coverage approach, where what we expect is that the first layer of coverage will be the most expensive, and then each succeeding layer above that will be less and less expensive. But we do, and as we talked about in the budget workshop last week, we are expecting those rates to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.2 million. And so that's what we have added to the budget that the board looked at on Thursday night. And so because of the fact that we've had the hailstorm in the spring of 2017, we had one on June the 6th of this year, and we also had a fire at the Dale Jackson Career Center in the dust collection system. The damage on that fire is in the $175,000 range. And so because all those numbers became available, that we knew the occurrence of those events, we didn't know the dollar value of it until Friday. And so the underwriters at these, and it's probably 18 to 20 or so companies, Craig, that are involved in all the various layers. So they felt like they needed some time to reevaluate their pricing. And one of those, the lead company, if you will, in the very first layer, which is the primary coverage, is Lloyd's of London, and so they're 6 hours ahead of us.
They're top.
And so this morning, by the time we were able to talk to our local agent at USI, the business day was already over in London, and so we expect pricing from Lloyd's of London tomorrow, and so as soon as we have that, we'll make it available to the board and certainly get it posted in board book. But we are in a position where our coverage expires at the end of August, and we won't have any coverage. So unfortunately, we find ourselves in a spot where we don't have a lot of options, but we're in that spot because our current company has chosen to not renew us, and they have not even submitted a quote at any price on next year's coverage. So all these companies that will be presenting to the board next week are not connected with our incumbent insurance carrier. So that's kind of where we are. Did I leave anything out of that, Mr. Martin? Okay.
No. In the future, though, I think we had talked about in January, we're going to go and try to push a reset button. And so how do we make sure that when that happens, that everyone can see the information we want them to see, all the companies?
We will make sure that are you talking about locally advertising it, Dr. Rogers?
I'm talking about where you mentioned that how they could sort of hide block market.
Well, unfortunately, that's kind of how the business works. And so what we've learned through this process is that other districts are doing a two-stage process. That's what we did in this process as well. And by the two-stage process, what we really mean is we circularize the request for proposals, and we evaluate them based on our stated criteria, and then and we ask them to suggest to us the companies they would prefer to do business with, and then through an evaluation process, we would then assign those markets to those companies. In the case we found ourselves in this year, we didn't have to. We did a two-stage process, but because we only had one respondent, we were comfortable in just signing those letters ourselves and assigning those markets to that company. Hopefully, in subsequent processes, we would need. And this also fell during July when we don't have a board meeting in our our subsequent processes, we would want to solicit the board's input on how to assign those markets to the respondents. And hopefully we will have more than one response in future. And we also are working with consultants. We've got a little report that we will provide to the board with the pricing that our consultant has given us, really just to help reinforce the fact that this is the new normal, I think, in the insurance business. This layered approach and this risk sharing among several companies, because I think what our current carrier has realized, they were liable for our losses, Plano ISD and Wiley ISD over by Lake Lavon, and what was the other one, Craig? Frisco, us. Okay. So $100 million is a big hit for most even the international insurance carriers.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Timish.
All right, thank you. Well, I can say that in our business, we've had some experience with, you do have to get creative when you're in insurance. We've used Lloyd's of London, and they've actually picked up some niche markets, so I know it might be unusual, but they actually were great to work with, and I think, I know it's crazy, but you gotta go where the services and prices are. I wanted to ask, just to clarify, for the company that dropped us for our insurance, we don't do any other type of business, banking, or anything else with this company? Like, just, if they're, I know some of these companies are so big, but, I really am struggling a little bit. If they can just do this to us in multiple school districts, I don't want them to be making profits off us in any other way, and I don't know the answer if they are.
I don't believe we do any other business with them, Ms. Timish, but I would want to check on that, because we do have some other lines of coverage apart from the property insurance, if you will, but I don't recall that AIG participates in any of those.
Okay, and I don't know, I know TASB offers a lot of different, is this not an area that they have any great pricing for?
Well, they have not, and they do actually, we use them for some of our auto insurance, and that also will be on the agenda for Monday night. They have not been competitive in the property, and again, the risk, the level of coverage that we're looking for, they would, if companies like AIG and Lloyd's of London are shying away from it, I think TASB's risk management pool would struggle with it as well.
That's fine, thank you.
I guess I just want to make sure that we're looking at the same type of coverage that we have now. Like the per incident, et cetera.
Yeah.
We're not going to be sacrificing, if you will, kind of the coverage that we have now.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Ms. Prosink. That is one thing I probably should have mentioned. Part of the new normal in this arena, in addition to this layered coverage and the higher premiums, are higher deductibles. And so I think what we're going to be looking at, and most of us have experienced that personally on our homes. You used to be able to purchase a dollar deductible. Now it's typically a percentage of the value of your home, and I think that's what we're going to be looking at as well. In fact, it's 2%, I believe, is what 2% of the value of each property that we have listed. So with a maximum, with a cap of 5, is it 1%? 1%, right. With a cap of $5 million. It's 1% now, going to 2%.
They're proposing 2% up to 5 million capped.
So it is a sea change, if you will, in the insurance world for us, really since May the 28th.
Good question, Ms. Robinson. Okay, Mr. Miller?
The $5 million cap, it goes up to 2% with a $5 million cap. And so we're talking about spending $3.2 million, and it could go up to another amount that would be capped at $5 million.
Yeah, every occurrence. So, for example, the storm that just happened on June 6th, that was was 1%. So the total, the schools, the campuses that were affected was they were valued at $90 million. And so the district is basically responsible for $900,000. In this case, if you had the same type of storm, it would either be 2%, which is 1.8, or if there was more schools, the most it would be for the district in this case is what they're proposing is $5 million.
At an occurrence level or
Per occurrence.
Per occurrence.
per occurrence? Okay.
And Mr. Miller, to put that in perspective, the total loss on this June 6th storm was about $5.1 million. So the insurance company will be on the hook for about $4 million and change, and our deductible will be $900,000 and change.
Okay. So just wanted to walk through something, just make sure I got it. So it's going to sound really remedial, but so AIG, we were canceled. We're going to get some new numbers to look at next week on some proposals. We expect how many bidders? 3 or 4?
Well, the way it'll work, that's a great question. The way it'll work is we'll be looking to our agent, which is USI, and they will put together a consortium, if you will, of, let's call it 18 insurance companies, okay, plus or minus. And so if we have a claim, all these companies will be sharing the risks based on the levels that they have subscribed to. But USI will be our go-to firm to administer claims.
Okay. That's why Lloyd's of London's in the mix?
Right.
Okay. So, not to really be facetious, but as we think about making America great again, I think at some point we have to start really being serious about doing business with U.S. companies, not companies that just happen to have offices. Lloyd's of London, I'm sure that there's a complex algorithm that goes with, or an algebraic equation that goes with this very complex model. But, and this is no disrespect to them or their business, but at some point we need to be thinking about how is it that we put an RFP out that's attractive enough that domestic companies, and maybe ideally Texas companies, I mean, if the state wants to deal with Harvey and fix some things right, they could also do a lot to promote the Texas economy by using Texas companies in solutioning some of that going forward. And I know we get into, well, we've got to save money, we're a government entity. At some point, we need to be thinking, the 7 of us, with recommendations for you guys, can we do some things to make sure that we're doing business here? And here I would start with the U.S. And if you guys come back and say, no, it has to be Lloyd's of London because it's going to add, $2 million more, then maybe. But I just think we've got to start asking ourselves these questions, right? And when you buy a car that's the owner is in another country, you're still buying a car from a company that's owned in another country. And this is a fundamental, foundational thing that's going on in our country. And I just would hope that there's another area that I had expressed concerns, that we are looking at companies that, if we can, are headquartered in the United States. It'd be great if they're headquartered in Texas, but that's my thought on that. And I know it's a complicated formula.
Yeah, I think right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're just trying to find anyone that'll insure our property.
Right now,
I think most of them are, of the 18, it's just, everyone's going to pick up pieces. And
well, somebody's going to do it. I mean, I guess the other thing I was going to say was, we've kind of set the market, right? We've gone public with, we've added $3.2 million or $2 million in addition in our budget, right? Pretty much the market that's bidding knows LISD has in its budget $3.2 million, right? So I would expect that we're going to see proposals come in, if they're smart, because these are public meetings. Nobody's going to come in, they're going to drop out rather than come in at 3.3, 3.5, or they're going to hope that nobody else can be a bidder. Otherwise, maybe we'll get 2.8, 2.9, but the market's been set, right?
Yeah, but they're still going to compete against each other for a piece of that market. So there is some competition still to be a part of the.
The underwriters who are making those decisions are in some office somewhere, and they may know the slice of the pie that they have, and they may not, and that is not public, because we're not even sure how that's gonna play out. And so I think there's still a pretty good competitive environment at play there, and I'm not saying the premium won't be significant, and it could be more than what we have said. I don't know. It could be less. I don't think the fact that we have publicly said what our budget is will significantly impact that.
Well, and Mike, I mean, correct me, but our consultant that we hire, I mean, has access to all these different numbers from
Absolutely.
a lot of entities, not just LISD.
Right.
So we know where we fall in
The
ballpark.
market has totally changed. I mean, it's turned upside down right now. Everybody's afraid because the districts are such, the total insurance value in there, and the proximity to school is so close. And when a hailstorm happens, in this case, it impacts multiple schools. And so we've kind of, Plano and LISD and Wiley, they're just, they don't want anything to do with it. Where before, we had a $600 million policy. We had one provider, and it was and now we're looking at trying to find 18 that will, and I think that one of the things that Mr. Ball was started to talk about, and I think that's the board would be how much insurance coverage. That would be the question the district, Ms. Brosnack, how much do you want? I mean, because our insurance value, total insurance value is about $2.2 billion. Where's the comfort level of how much coverage you want?
Is that land, is that buildings only?
It's buildings and anything contents inside in the buildings and technology and everything.
When Craig first brought this, Craig and Maya said, well, let's just lower, like, as you see on the tier system, those last 200 or 300 million are drops in the bucket. It's still that first chunk that costs you the big. So.
A lot of the, I think Frisco and Plano and I know those two. That they're right now they had dropped theirs to 500. That's what they're doing right now is 500 million.
Mike mentioned the TASB risk pool. Is that a play? The different co-ops we have, we want to buy a car, right? Is there nothing like that here where there's some type of buying power?
Well, that's a good question. The TASB risk pool is a totally different concept than purchasing insurance, because what the TASB risk pool is exactly what it says, where the district would be sharing risk with other member districts. And so what TASB does is they have actuaries that calculate what is the contribution that each participating district would need to make in order to fund the estimated losses. And it can work both ways, so that if the actuarial calculations result in too much contribution, you could get a refund. On the flip side, if the calculations come up short, the districts can get assessments. And so many districts, particularly larger districts, made the decision a few years ago, gee, we need to know what our costs are going to be. Admittedly, this situation is such that we find ourselves where we don't know what it's going to be, but once we make a decision as a board, we will know what our costs are going to be absent any losses. But in a situation where you're in a shared risk pool, you could wind up being assessed for some losses that occurred in another district. So we could have sunny skies the entire year, and if other participants in the risk pool have unusual losses, we could be assessed for it. And so that's the conceptual framework for that type deal. So it's a different concept than just purchasing insurance.
Thank you.
Ms. Sells?
Yeah, just to comment on Mr. Miller's, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find part of that rubric when we're going out for another, you know.
Don't forget.
I mean,
Don't forget.
if
Be the
that's
top
not
question.
or for some reason. But I want to make sure that that's part of our criteria. I want to know that, and honestly, you know, have they done this, have you ever non-renewed a school district? And, you know, I'd love to have that information. And then I think my other question was answered, you know, since I wasn't at the workshop the other evening, we're making sure that we have the plans for that budget hit to occur, if we have incidents like this. So, and I think that was covered, so.
Okay, I don't have any questions because that was pretty doom and gloom. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to cut costs on facilities or something. We'll have some happier news.
Get some happy news.
So any other questions? Hey, Mr. Ball, you're up again.
Well, this is a much cheerier topic.
Oh, great.
So, I was called Mr. Wet Blanket today, so I'm going to try to have a little brighter topic here. This topic has to do with architect selection for the Valley Ridge Elementary School 20-year refresh and STEM Academy renovations. And the reason we're bringing this to the board is we need to the STEM renovations might be on a little different timeline than the 20-year renovation, and so we think there's some efficiency in using the same architect firm that has designed the two STEM academies we already have underway, and that work should be done in conjunction with the 20-year refresh project at Valley Ridge that's scheduled as a year 3 project, so that we don't have any lost motion, if you will, in designing something and then it all needs to be done in the context of that. And so the thinking and what we'll have on the 13th agenda is an action item to appoint Huckabee as the architect for those projects, because they have designed the other two that we currently have. And so really that's all this is, just so we can get the STEM work started, but do it in the context of the 20-year refresh that will be in the 3rd year of the bond programs.
Ms. Hassett?
I think it's a great idea. We shift teachers less, and that's always a good thing, to make them not have to step out of the room and clear the room out. My question is there something that has to be bumped to year 3 since this is being bumped up? Just kidding.
I don't think the 20-year refresh is not being bumped. I mean, it's been all along a year 3 project, so we're really not shifting timelines on that.
So this is both of them will be year 3, considered year 3?
This does give us an opportunity, if we
do them
wanted to
conjunction.
accelerate the 20-year refresh. That's an option that this would give us. This allows us to go ahead and have the STEM Academy designed and the 20-year refresh. Whether or not we kept the 20-year refresh as a year 3 project and did the academy separately, because the hope was that it would open in the next year.
Are we going to have to move teachers twice then?
Well, no. As you know, it really comes down to when we decide to do the 20-year refresh. So, if we don't end up accelerating a little bit, then it would push that into like potentially a 3 summer process. We really have to, manage what that looks like.
Right, but a majority of the work too with these STEMs involves the library and typically 3 classrooms, and so we want to go in there and do all the work within those 3 classrooms. That's what we did at Polzer this summer. So Polzer was a 2-year 20-year refresh. We went ahead and did all the STEM work this summer, even though that STEM academy is not due till next year. We got it all done this summer.
So flooring, if that's part of the 20-year refresh,
Yes, ma'am.
for those classrooms would already be finished, so they don't have to move out of their classroom during a different timeline.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. Flooring, furniture, everything in that room. Now there may be, if the HVAC system is part of a larger system, that may be done with the 20-year refresh. But everything within that room that would have to be moved out would be done at that time.
Mr. President?
So I know you've got like 5 different timelines going on and all your different refreshes across the district from and trying to have as little impact as you can on moving teachers and students, which I greatly appreciate. So kind of piggybacking on Ms. Hassett's question, are we looking at some of those more creative solutions to perhaps accelerate this at Valley Ridge?
That's kind of what I was trying to explain. I probably did a poor job, but that's exactly what we would be looking at. And this gives us that option to do that. And so, again, if we were to do it like a Polter where we went in and just kind of as its own, or like Donald, I guess, as its own, then it would, if we did the 20-year refresh, the 2 summers, because we've gone to the 2-summer approach, then literally we are in the campus 3 summers, some kind of construction. So we're looking at those options now. The amount of work that we have planned for and already been approved by the board for year 2. And so options now of what would that look like, and as we get into the design of that, we can see what that would entail in order to try to accelerate that to maybe be in there just the 2 summers.
It's exactly what I was gonna point out is that the first thing to do is get the design team in place, and then the next step would be at some point to have a CM at risk involved, and having that team together really enables our folks to make a more informed decision about what all would need to be involved and what the timeline of the work and all of that, the phasing, if you will. And it's really better to make that decision when you've got the team that's going to actually have to execute it in place.
Any questions? Miller? Sells?
I just wanted to make sure that going to the 2 is doable, or you believe that team will be able to come back with a plan to, I mean, Pulsar's being done in 1 summer, correct?
So the 20-year refresh at Polzer is actually 2 summers.
2 summers, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So all of our 20-year refreshes this summer are the 2-year
It
approaches.
looks like so much is going on.
There definitely is.
They're just rebuilding the school.
Oh, my goodness.
There definitely
It's
is.
crazy, okay. So it would kind of follow that same plan?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right. Yeah, Donald was a 1 summer, but it wasn't a 20-year refresh.
Right.
But this summer, Creekside Old Settlers, Polzer, and Marcus are all 2-year 20 refreshes that we've taken care of the first year. So next summer, those 4 slide over, and we start phase 1 of the year 2 20 years. So we'll have 9 20-year refreshes going on without Valley Ridge. So if we do Valley Ridge, it'll be 10. But again, the advantage.
They're getting really good at it.
Right.
But even in the 2-year, 20-year, 2 summer, 20-year refreshes, teachers are only moved 1.
That's correct. And one other thing to keep in mind is this summer that we are currently in is the shortest summer in history here. And so next year, the calendar will make we'll have a little bit extra time.
We have 2 whole weeks.
Yeah.
It's been impressive, I'll tell you, from somebody that passes that a campus on that every day, because that's my way in and out. It's been quite impressive, just the amount of work and the work that's gone on. It's not like some other construction that you see where there's more taking breaks than you see working. There has always been a flurry of activity, so impressed. Okay. I have no.
Ms. Timish?
Okay, so, and I agree with everything, just because I know at Pulsar, the teachers and staff cannot get into that building at all. So my concern, which makes it just really hard. They're just, for new teachers or so all of that, I just want to make sure that whatever we decide, I definitely don't want 3 summers, but just 1 summer where they cannot get in the building at all, because it doesn't do us any good to do the STEM first, but then they can't get into the building the next summer.
We'll make sure that's the case.
Yeah, and one of the things, if you'll allow me, Ms. Timmis, to give you a little background on where we are this summer. If you recall, when we executed the contracts with the construction manager firms for the current summer's work, we had not yet set the academic calendar. And so those contracts were done at the time thinking that we'd be starting the last week in August, so they all have a completion date of August 15th. which now happens to be the first day of instruction. And so we're working. We realize that some of the teachers have not been able to access their campus like they'd like to, and that certainly was not our intent through this process. We have made arrangements and authorized ABM to do whatever overtime is necessary to get the campuses ready once they can get in there. And our intent, as Mr. Fide already said, is next year the summer will be a little longer, and we'll know when we're executing those contracts, I think, hopefully what the start date will be, or an approximation of it. And I think we'll be better equipped to avoid that
And this
situation.
is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to be, and not, I completely understand. What I didn't want was what is happening now to happen multiple times for campus. Because I get that we have to do it,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I have one silly question.
Ms. Hassett?
Do you think we might be able to utilize LIC Council of PTAs to help with the teachers and help all the PTAs come help posers, teachers?
Just poster.
And it's not just Polzer. I mean, upstairs, when you saw all those, that's Old Settlers having their. So I would assume Polzer's having it at probably Career Center East or something. I mean, so.
Well, maybe we could just talk to the councils
Yeah.
right now, just to see if we can have other campuses help each other during the first part of school, even though everybody's busy. Just a thought, so we can help.
I think that would be great.
My comments are, I'm all in favor for Huckabee. It makes sense because they've already done work on other schools, so they know what they're doing, so I feel confident with that. My only question is, I'm trying to understand, so maybe you can help me explain, just what renovations do we need for a STEM academy? I mean, I get the 20-year refresh. I want to make sure we're not double dipping, and I understand maybe a STEM needs an additional classroom because of something, but really, what are we renovating to make it a STEM that you couldn't do with academics or something?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So this year for Donald Polzer, what we did is we worked with the STEM coordinator in the district as well as the campus to really kind of define that scope. So on both of those campuses, really it came down to a lot of changes in the library area itself with makerspace and really opening up that library, and then 3 classrooms within the school that have sinks now. They're more of a lab setup, a little more visibility. There's some windows into those classrooms, so when you walk through the building, you not only see through the library, but you can see into those STEM classrooms, see what's going on. Right.
But I get the sinks and stuff, but the window doesn't make STEM, it doesn't make it, that's my point. Yes.
It's plumbing too, that in
Right.
one of those
See,
classrooms.
I get that. So I just wanted to see what was true STEM as opposed to just,
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's the
So-
scope that was defined on these projects, like say with the STEM coordinator this
Yes.
summer. So.
I think the goal is to really, the library being the heart of the building. We talked a lot about opening up, so everybody, when you come into that building, sees what this academy's about. You see the kids working, you see the maker space. It's really evident from all aspects into the building that kids are working on science, math, engineering. So it just opens that space up, making it
any other questions? Mr. Ball, I think you can take a break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're done for tonight.
Dr. Bonner.
Yes, ma'am.
Employee
Thank you.
Services Report.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Board members, Courtney Hart, Dr. Courtney Hart will be presenting this evening on the Panorama Employee Engagement Survey. I want to thank Dr. Hart and Dr. Heyer for their work in getting this implemented in year 1. Dr. Hart's going to review the district-level data on the 3 surveys that the district conducted over the past school year. And so, take it away, Dr. Hart.
Several weeks ago, we looked through just a big overview. So we kind of looked at the framework of those surveys. And what I'd like to do tonight is go a little bit more in depth with those survey results so that you can kind of get a feel and understanding for what that survey looked and felt like, and to get an idea of what are the next steps, what are we doing with that information. In your packet, you have 3 sets of survey results. So those survey results include every question that was given to Lewisville ISD employees, and it includes all the results. And it's just broken out in those employee groups that we talked about last time. So that's going to be the campus instructional, and then campus non-instructional, and then the district office staff. Now, in your discussion item, it actually talks a little bit about the background information of Panorama and why we chose that group. And some of that information is on these slides, so I'm going to go through those rather quickly because it was in your discussion information. Oh, and I see some of you looking at it. There is one more piece of information behind those three pieces of data. At the very back, you have some open-ended responses. We did ask some open-ended responses of all of the survey, on all of the surveys. Those are some pretty big packets. So we chose one of the smaller ones for you tonight. One of the larger ones is over 250 pages. You are absolutely welcome to that information if you'll just send us an email. That way we can send it to you digitally. So we just wanted to conserve our resources this evening. So Panorama, it's a group that we chose because we really liked a number of things that they brought to the table. Some of their attributes included really strong customer service, good response time. We liked their price point. Also, they have really, really strong research teams. They did a nice job of creating a number of different instruments and scales that we were able to choose from. They have a number of partners. So they're newer, but they're not brand new on the scene. So there are several other folks who've been using them. But what I want to spend the bulk of our time on this evening is really giving you a chance to understand those results. So again, we had the instructional set of questions and the non-instructional set of questions, and these are the scales that were chosen by groups of stakeholders. Panorama suggested staying under 5 scales, so we did that. Our average response time was 12 minutes. And just in case you had any further questions about their instrument design, I just wanted to share a little bit more background information with you, and you do have it in your handouts printed a little bit bigger than this on the screen. So they do have quite a bit of research that they do to ensure that their instruments are reliable and valid.
I helped a little. I bet you did.
Yeah, y'all read some of that.
So what we're going to dive into this evening is the instructional survey. And we're going to look specifically at 2 of those 5 scales. So let's start with educating all students. So educating all students is a scale that's really looking at how confident are our teachers in meeting the needs of every single kid who walks through their door. So if you look at question 1 there, how easy do you find interacting with the students at your school who are from a different cultural background than your own? And you can see in our results, we had an 89% positive response. So that means that 89% of the Lewisville ISD people who answered this question chose either extremely easy or quite easy. You can see almost 4 in 10 chose extremely easy, and almost half chose quite easy. The other 10% chose somewhat easy, which is considered to be the neutral response. So if you add the neutral response into that positive, I just want you to look, that takes us up to 99%, which feels pretty good. If you look down at question number 3, so now we're asking, how knowledgeable are you regarding where to find resources for working with students who have unique learning needs? You can see we're at 68% positive on this response, and so let's look at those top ones. 19% said they were extremely knowledgeable, and 48% said they were quite knowledgeable. Now this is a different question. This is more than just, how are the students, how do you feel teaching your own content to a number of different students? This is, how comfortable are you finding resources to meet their unique needs? So I think what we're really seeing here is we're seeing our different levels of experience emerge in these questions. And again, if you add that neutral response to it, so 28% said, oh, I feel somewhat knowledgeable. That takes us up to 96% on this question. So once again, this is just kind of an idea of how we're looking at these results. And in those packets, once again, you have this plus all of the other information. Let's continue looking at these. If you look at number 5, how easy would it be for you to teach a class with groups of students from very different religions from each other? We had 86% positive. So once again, it's asking, how comfortable are you teaching your own content to students who are different religions? Look at number 6. In response to events that might be occurring in the world, how comfortable would you be having conversations with race about your students? You can see it drops to 69% positive responses. So 27% said, I'm extremely comfortable with that. And 43% said, I'm quite comfortable. And 22% said, somewhat. Now, this isn't asking, are you feeling like you're able to do this at all. It's asking about their comfort level. So once again, what we're seeing emerge is there different levels of experience. If we take a look at resources, you look at number 5 there. How often do your school's facilities need repairs? So 42% positive. Now, one of the things that we talked about last time is the comparison against the national benchmark. So our comparison against the Educating All Students national benchmark, I believe we were at the 51% mark. So we're at the 51st percentile. On the resources mark, we're above the 90th percentile. So our teachers answered positively more than 90% of the other teachers across the nation who've taken this scale or this topic of questions, if that makes sense.
I don't understand that. Could you clarify that?
Yeah. So all of the teachers who've taken this test nationwide, who've taken this survey nationwide, all of the other school districts who've selected this particular topic, they gauge what percentage of them choose what's perceived as the positive answer, so one of those first 2 answer choices. Our teachers chose more positive answers, above 90% of those teachers. I am sure there's someone who can explain this better than I am doing. You get it didn't completely flip through the cracks.
What she's saying is that the 42% positive, while it looks low, is better than 90% of the districts across the U.S. that answered that same question. So anyway, there's room for growth. There's room for improvement. But
Room for growth. There's room for improvement. As a tongue twister.
And I think you have to also understand, it's a little generic. Facilities need repairs. That could be anything from your pencil sharpener needs to be rehung on your wall to, hey, the doorknob. I mean, so it's anyway.
Well, what's interesting about this one is, so if you're a campus principal, really the purpose of these surveys, the whole reason Panorama writes these surveys is because they're trying to spark a conversation. So if you're a principal and you're looking at this, the first thing I might do is compare myself to the district. So if I'm around 42%, I might think, okay, I might ask a few more questions of my staff, but okay. If I'm at 65% positive answers, I'm probably going to celebrate and go look for another place where I might need to do some improvement. But if I look at this and only 20% of my teachers had a positive response, my first question might be, when's the last time I went down in that 6th grade hallway? Come to think of it, it was a little dark. I wonder if they're feeling that like that's the lights. Or I might wonder, do they know what the method is for putting things in? Do they feel like there's not an option? So there's a lot of things that this could be. And really, again, the purpose of this is to start that conversation. It might be a communication issue. So there could be a lot of things underneath this if your score is lower or higher than the district or lower or higher than the nation. So they have the ability to look at that and just kind of dig a little deeper into it. If you look at question number, this is my favorite one on here. Question number 8. How important is it for your school to hire more specialists to help the students? Okay, well, we had 27% give a positive response to this, so 6% said it's not at all important, 21% said slightly important, 26% said somewhat important. There's a lot of things I might start to ask myself if I'm looking at this. Like, for instance, earlier there was a question about, it was on the Educating All Students, and it talked about, I feel really good teaching my own content to the students. But when it said, how good do you feel about finding resources for students with a unique need? Well, that dropped off pretty significantly. So this may be an issue of, do they know what the resources are? Are they aware that we have people who can help them with this? Or my next question might be, if I have some really experienced teachers and that number is low, I might start looking at, what do these schedules look like? Should we come back to the table and kind of look at number of students, campuses, what parts of the district are people driving back and forth between if we're talking about a campus that's serving multiple, or an individual serving multiple campuses? So there's a lot of different things to look at here. And once again, the purpose is to give the principals something that would spark a conversation, something that would make them go, you know what, I need to ask a few questions about that. I need to see kind of what the root of that is.
So, I don't mean to interrupt, but to your point then, it could be, it's 27% district-wide, but it could be very different for a specific, the answers could be very different at a specific campus.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So what we did when we had training, we brought all the principals and the department leaders together, and really it comes down to these 3 questions. what are our teachers or staff telling us? What are they trying to say? And what does that mean they're asking us to do? It might be a number of different things. It might be, can you give me information on how to reach this person? It might be, can you redo this schedule? There's a lot of things they could be asking us to do. And then finally, how are we going to respond to this request? So that's really kind of the key, the starting, jumping off point. Then we have them think through, is this actionable? And does this have a high impact? So, you know, if teachers are complaining, listen, it is hot to work here in Texas. That's not a very actionable thing. There's not a whole lot I can do with that other than say, it sounds like you should park closer to the school and get inside the air conditioning more quickly. There's not a lot you can do with that. Same with high impact. Are you going to choose something where you can really make a difference? So we ask them to just kind of look at that prioritization matrix and then consider a few things like your national and peer benchmarking. So where are you against Lewisville ISD? And where are you against that national benchmark? Also, what is your campus goal this year? What are your campus priorities? Does this fall into it? And timing, is this something you'd want to address now or should this wait till summer? There's just a lot of things that we kind of gave them to think through as they're looking at these results. And they're going to add information from the employee engagement survey into at least one of their strategies on the campus improvement plan. All of our campuses will be. So that's what it's going to look like in terms of campus rollout. That's what I've got for you.
That's great. Okay, Ms. Posnick?
To that very last point, since we're going to ask the campuses to add it into their CIP, will we also be adding this into our district improvement plan?
I have in the comprehensive needs assessment section of the district improvement plan, I've referenced what these baseline results looked like. I don't think I took a picture of the exact charts. I think I just repeated the percentages, but I did build that into the district improvement plan under that needs assessment since it was baseline data.
So I have one more quick question. Are we going to be, we gave this survey January, February of this year. Are we going to, are we going to use that same time frame from now on? So, I mean, I guess it's a norm.
The current plan right now is to stay within the same time frame. It worked pretty well for us in terms of timeline.
And if we don't, then we've really hurt our baseline because now there's factors that are different. So, that's sort of our rationale for keeping it around the same time.
Mr. Miller?
So, Courtney, thank you for this. One of the things when you look at Panorama's data scientists, I mean, the thing that you did a great job with this, but this is complicated stuff. And data scientists come through this stuff all the time. And I know that because I work with 100 of them. This is a lot of questions. I think it's too many questions for an employee survey. Something to think about. Generally speaking, neutral does not go in the affirmative. And let me give you just some examples. If you go out to a website and it asks you for feedback, it'll have 5 stars. Usually if you give it 3, it's going to ask you for a verbatim. Why is that? Because neutral is not considered a positive. If you're asked for a 0 through 10, would you recommend somebody to whoever you're doing the survey for? If it's a 9 or a 10, that's a promoter. If it's anything but a 0 or 1, it's neutral, and neutral is discarded completely. So I think the reason I bring that up is, and in one, Dr. Darby used to come and present to us, right? We had a data scientist that would actually present and contextualize all this with the other schools. But to me, when I see numbers at 67%, because again, I'm going to take the neutrals out, I get really concerned, right? So it would seem to me that there would be some things that are very prescriptive. So with a question like, do you feel like the learning spaces are, and I'm paraphrasing it, are congested? I mean, what is the question, would you feel like, right? That is, how do you compare that on a national level or in the district? I just think there's some of those things where questions need to each have something that's actionable based on how somebody responds. And so, for example, if ABC Campus looks at this from an instructional perspective and says, okay, at your school, how crowded do the learning spaces feel? I mean, 57% are favorable, is what it says here. That means that 43% are not favorable. So actually, the way they score it somewhat does not go in the favorable category. And so I just, this is not a criticism. I just think it's worth looking at. If we were to apply some of these statistics across the district, and whether it's a superintendent goal or if we just looked at a student population and said 17% of instructional leaders say that there's this is not a positive, and that means that we could extrapolate that the number of students who don't get that positive experience. That's how I'm looking at this, right? So ultimately, this is about employee care, but the objective of employee care is to inspire people in the classroom and in instructional support to take care of our students, right? This is a care and feeding so that we can inspire them to do their job, and that's where I'm coming from as it relates to the things that are not considered favorable. And I did read the preliminary document that we were sent, and I know we're creating a baseline. So I just think with that, the other thing I would say is I'm a little bit concerned about Gallup. I think had a reputation that is a big brand, right? But when this company compares us to other school districts, I don't know, other than those logos, I mean, are we talking about school districts in the city of New York that's run by the mayor, or city? I mean, who? It depends on who their customers are, and then where are they getting their baseline data? Are they taking data from other, like what we used to do for Gallup, and pulling that in to really get a good sampling of how we compare? Because I would say this, we've got to compare. I mean, we've got to score very highly against other states. Let's start with that, right? So when we say how do we compare at a national level, I would expect us to compare very well, right? Versus a Common Core state or where the NEA is involved or whatever. That's why I'm struggling with how to really take that and find anything meaningful in it at this point without really understanding some of the deeper data underneath that.
And I was just curious, were the teachers, because when I read the survey, I've been in the classroom, I'm not a teacher, but I'm educationally trained to be a teacher. And for me, resources is broad. My kids have the supplies that they need. Do I have the supplies I need? Were the teachers given a glossary of defining those terms, even challenging students? For me, back in the day, challenging students could have been those that were just having trouble getting a ride to school in the morning. Challenging students could have been demographic. It could have been learning challenges. I mean, there's such a broad spectrum. I just would like to see a narrow focus on really what are we talking about when we're doing that. And then the SMART goals in the informational thing, it says creating a SMART goal for bettering. But I'm just curious, are we creating SMART goals for the district as well as
Well, we only focused on instructional tonight, but I think, there's questions here, whose responsibility is it, the parents or instructional staff or the campus to, make sure that they have fun time? I mean, there are 4 questions right there on that page that I looked at, and I'm like, is anybody surprised by the answer to those, right? So why do we ask it? Because what are we going to do with it, right? The answers are not a surprise, and so maybe if we pay based on number of questions, I don't know how the contract works, but it's just some questions that what are we going to do with that, right? How does a principal at ABC school respond to that? I mean, because I could go into some other questions there. It begs the question: Are the campuses doing too much, right? Where we should try to solicit more parental involvement. I think there's some questions that come out. I don't know which one it was, a non-instructional or whatever, but it was in the black and white. It was printed in black and white, not color.
Yes, thank you. A couple of questions. You said on some of the results, it was because maybe the teachers didn't have experience, and so they didn't know where to. How did you know that that specific teacher may have rated that low because they didn't know? I just am curious.
Oh, I don't. I was just taking a.
Oh, okay.
It
I
could
don't
be.
want to assume that.
It could be any number of
Okay.
things.
Okay, great. Because I was like, well,
Well, that's a good opportunity to remind that it's totally anonymous and confidential.
Right. So,
Courtney
yeah, okay.
knows everybody's right.
I know.
And then just if there's any individual outliers, I mean, I know that it's anonymous, but if we have campuses, I mean, just again, reminding me that we've got systems in place to support principals.
I'm going to pitch it over to the nodding Dr. Coburn because this is a part of every campus's campus improvement plan. So do you want to hop in and address Ms. Finch's?
Happy to, and I think from what I'm hearing from all the board members so far, having a single strategy in the campus improvement plan this year through our conversations, we felt like was a great way to introduce this in that it is part of our improvement process. The campus improvement plan aligns directly with the district improvement plan, which comes from the needs comprehensive needs assessment. And so you've got all those data pieces there, and it's about taking a manageable chunk that comes from understanding your campus. For instance, you may be an outlier for a variety of reasons, and then some of the questions Dr. Hart and I have talked about, it feels like there's a positive presupposition to some of the answers, but if you dig in a little deeper, you go, well, maybe the positive presupposition wouldn't be how much feedback do you get, right? Lots of feedback, like, oh gosh, lots of feedback. So there are so many things to dig into with the answers, and so what we really wanted to do was challenge our principals to start to ask those questions, get with their staff, understand what's happening with their building leadership teams, and from there, through that collaborative process, put that single as our first step, one strategy in your campus improvement plan. You can say we're going to address one thing out of here as what we do in year one, because we're collecting baseline data, so that it wasn't just a baseline year and nothing else. Obviously, as we get into next year, the comparative data, I think, is where we'll look more for the outliers and see, wow, there was a huge shift in what happened from year one to year two in this particular area or these particular questions.
And I guess for me, it would just be more of, I really like our campuses having the freedom and autonomy to do what's best for their campus. At the same time, if you have a campus that there's a significant number of outliers, that we're really partnering with and managing that process a little bit more is what I would want to hear.
And that's where, Austin, I should have mentioned that earlier. I'm glad you said that. When we look at like TPES goals, for example, assistant chiefs working with principals on their improvement goals, you're using information like Panorama, and they certainly used information from Panorama in year one, not as an evaluative tool, but as an improvement tool right away. And that is where a lot of those individual differences in who's working with the leader, the instructional leader on that campus, the cultural leader on that campus to improve some of those processes.
And so some of that would become an individual's goal. While it's connected, it's not part of the campus improvement plan, but certainly that individual principal.
That's it. Really, a lot of the same is really what I'm going to say, but basically to your point, Dr. Coburn, some of these, like the feedback was low, especially now that it's going to be on our campus profile sheets, saying that we actually enter the classes. That's to me a little bit low. Does Panorama actually have, and then leadership was high. So to me, those are, do they have links to say, look at this question compared to this question to see any anomalies that occur? Do they provide you those kind of insights on questions that might, I mean, because to me, if leadership is so high, why is feedback so low? So I just didn't know if they might help you and they don't help you.
We
Not
didn't
really.
get anything specific like that. That's actually I might just mention that to them.
Because it would be very helpful if you don't think about the questions on how they relate, but some of these questions to me do pair well and with how they should respond, and when there's a delta, I'm just wondering why there is a delta with the feedback being low and the leadership being high.
To your point, Christy, I think Dr. Hart is writing over here. That's a great way to look at that particular item. What we're doing in our group is looking for which one of these areas are we lower in that's a big value add, right? And I think that's what you're getting to. How can we enhance this piece and bring more value to other areas? And so I think that's kind of that's a good point.
Another question is, I had one more question. Oh, how do we use this data to compare to our student surveys? In particular, some of the climate questions that we ask them, how comfortable do you feel interacting with other students? How do we compare the teachers' responses on how they feel interacting with students versus what the students feel interacting with teachers? How do we ever compare those two sets of data?
We haven't compared those at this time, but with the district improvement plan being at a discussion coming up, that would be something we could include as a goal for Panorama results, is to take a look at the Panorama teacher questions that link up with student survey.
To me, that would show some slight improvement, hopefully improvement, in the cultural proficiency that we've been working on for years, if we could show how the students have felt positive change throughout the years.
Actual measurement for cultural proficiency.
So I was just wondering how we.
Well, and if I could add on to, I'm sorry, Jen, I'm not trying to jump in, Jenny, but just to follow through on that, the speaker we had at Thrive on the first day, something that he talked about, and I read the book, believe it or not, and once we got past the jokes, he really had a lot of profound things to say. And this teacher-student engagement model where teachers should be receptive to input from students, right? And students should be comfortable that there's a relationship, especially as they get older. Sir Ken Robinson would say we take all the creativity out of them by the time they're in high school, right? And so this guy's basically advocating this relationship, and I think that questions somehow creating that connection between what students are asking them, and even maybe looking at the Panorama questions based on what we talked about at Thrive, because the questions don't necessarily line up with some of the topics at Thrive, right? So it might be good. I mean, I just think we were onto something there, and if we're gonna measure staff, then we've got to link it up with what we were the message we were delivering. That's all. I mean, there's got to be a way to somehow draw that connection. And by the way, I'm sure they have someone on their staff that's a PhD that can do connections between those questions. Usually there's a lot of science that goes into that, so you might find someone there.
Ms. Prosnick?
It's your turn.
Oh, she's right. Okay, sorry, I don't even know where we're at. I appreciate it very much. I like this a lot better than the Gallup poll and feel there's some more opportunities for teachers to address. But my question is, and I know you kept saying I, so I presume you're referring to the principal? Or who were you? You were saying that I might need to go down and look at.
I was referring to the principal.
To me, I mean, if you're reading in these things, this isn't an I, it's a district-wide deal. And so my question is, who's monitoring results? Because we keep doing all these polls and these things. How are we seeing results where we are seeing the numbers change for the next year, that the next group of teachers, the results, it wasn't 40%, it actually went up to 50, that if it was a facilities problem, we were calling Jason and his team, because maybe the bathrooms weren't clean all the time, and we didn't notice it. Maybe it's Dr. Rapp's team, they didn't realize there were resources, because there's a whole list of new teachers, so we need to utilize, because it's anonymous, correct? So we don't know where these comments are coming from, so I would presume, we have to presume it's the entire campus, right? Because we don't know who that single person is. So who is holding accountability to whomever, whether, I guess it is the principal, to where these results are going to happen, and think change is gonna happen on that campus to get those numbers at a higher level for the next year? Where's that accountability?
In my experience so far with Panorama, that would be the assistant chiefs. I've spent a lot of time on the phone with them, going through data pieces, and they'll call to double check things, and can you access this, and can you pull this for me? So I feel like that would really be the assistant chiefs. They're very familiar with this at the campus level.
Okay,
as compared
and
to the
we've
district
discussed
level.
it several times, and so certainly if it's campus related, it's gonna be Dr. Coburn, assistant chiefs, but as you mentioned, not all of this is campus related, and so ultimately, Brian's gonna be responsible for those that are in his department, how that moves or not. I mean, all I can promise is that we're gonna pay attention to it. It'll be much easier when you have two sets of data that you can compare, after you have the baseline. But all of the department leaders will be responsible for, and it's broken down into that small of groups. I mean, every department,
So who is all reviewing this data? I mean, I would presume lots of people, correct? So who is all that?
So it was given first to the principals, then principals had the opportunity to share it in a number of different ways. Some of our principals created online accounts. Some of our principals took the PDF reports. So some of our campuses have as many as, I want to say 50 accounts where people can log in and look at everything. Other times I can see downloads, and I see a lot of downloads of those PDFs. So it really kind of depends on how that campus chose to do things. In terms of departments, I can tell you we have that information is broken down by at least 30, at least 40 people have specific department level information, and then some of those departments have departments within a department. As an example, I believe there's 4 departments within the financial area. So Mr. Ball has that information, but then he met individually with his teams under there and his team leaders in each of those areas, and they looked at and discussed that data. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question?
The reason I'm asking is, let's just say, and Dr. Rapp, I'm just using you for an example.
Sure.
There's no being derogative by any means.
No
but
problem.
If I'm looking, if this data comes to me and I'm looking and I see my numbers are low from resources or whatever I'm to be providing, well, I'm probably going to reach out to that campus too, because that principal has a lot going on too. So it's a team effort. So we have to rely on the team too to kind of help engage and offer assistance. So I'm just curious if there's other people trying to help facilitate some of these responses.
To the campus. How many people at the district are looking at the campus
Yes.
level? Oh, I've got it.
So if it's a facility question that they answered very low on, obviously facility, whether the principal reaches out, that might be low on their radar because they're trying to do other things, but maybe that's something they reach out and say, I noticed that this was a flag to me. Is that happening?
So
or-
one of the helpful things is that district level data is actually available to everyone who has those survey results. So the same way we're able to see the district, the same way we're able to see where we are at the national norm, anyone who's looking at these results can see exactly where they are on the district norm, which means that basically our district results, full district results, are available to anyone who's looking at survey results, especially for their own campus. Does that help?
I think what'll help the departments too is looking at the campus improvement plan goals, because there's a lot of areas in the survey to take a look at. And so one of the things I know we've talked about in learning and teaching as we looked at our own results after they came back and others, for instance, is identifying what are the goals the campuses have chosen to work on and how do we circle back around with them and help improve in that area, because there are so many areas that could be tackled with all the feedback. So I think getting those specific goals will help us support them too.
Do you have something else?
Yeah, I'd like to tag on to this a little bit. So, as we looked at the superintendent or the board goals, we got to the I statements and I think one more about 5, right? We simplified it. I'm hopeful that I don't have to do the auditing on the campus improvement plans this year, that they'll be updated and all out there. I think it's a lot of work. It would seem to me that if I'm, well, first of all, if you look at the elementary level, 40 schools, 2 assistant chiefs, they've got 20 schools that they've got. I would think they'd be combing through every one of these. I mean, I have customers at big technology companies that will, at an SVP level, read 4,000 verbatims a weekend on surveys. So I think, I assume that we're really they're looking at all that data. That's a lot for those 2 assistant chiefs, though, just because of the number of campuses they have. So it begs a question then, are we really confident in this such that we would want to have district goals and superintendent goals against this data, right? Because if this doesn't feed back into some accountability system, so let's just say there are things that go to technology, there are things that go to facility, but who's going to come back and say, hey, board, we had these, we've categorized these, right? Of these 10 areas, right? 3 were instruction, 2 were facilities, 1 transportation, whatever. We've got that checked off. We got that checked off. So that there's that kind of macro level, and then what does progress look like on these things, right? So if I hate to pick a campus, I'm just saying, if ABC campus had such and such, and Ms. Litchfield was working with them, how's the feedback going to work that, hey, this is what we saw at that campus, and this is what we've done, and here's how we fix some of these things, and next year we're going to look at, how's that whole communication loop going to work?
Okay, you asked a lot there. I can try to jump in. I think that, because I think part of the issue is that we view, and I'm looking at my colleagues here because we all spend a lot of time pouring this over. We view Panorama as one more data point for us to use among many others, and so it's about being part of the holistic approach. And I'll speak really to the schools at this point. Obviously, there's a lot more there, but in that holistic approach, obviously we look at quantifiable student achievement data. We look at Gallup student poll results. We look at Panorama. We align all of that with district goals and then campus goals, many of which are individual to an individual principal, who then has individual goals for their staff, their department chairs, grade levels. And so you can just think of it almost like a tree with many branches. And so saying, are we comfortable with this being I would say no on a sole source for a campus, but I will tell you that the feedback from the assistant chiefs and from principals is that it was very positively used in terms of being part of the campus improvement planning process, which does lead to a SMART goal, which, if well written, is quantifiable and measurable and timely.
And so I think that's great. I think it's a fair response that it's a balanced scorecard. I think it's how you all, right? I mean, we're having a lot of discussion about this survey. This is one data point, right? So maybe what we need to do is somehow get to where we have that balanced scorecard discussion at the right level, right? Because I think at the campus level on something like this, it's too detailed for us. Because we'll get in the weeds if you guys want to get in the weeds, right? But you don't want us to. So that I'm just thinking I'm really thinking about what Ms. Cox was talking about from an accountability perspective. How do we measure this? Because again, we're spending a lot of time on this, but I agree with you. This should be a pulse on our employees primarily, how they're doing. Are we creating an environment where we're inspiring them to perform at the levels that they want to perform at, feel good about what they're doing, and inspire our students, and deal with the periodic complaints from parents, depending on campus, right? So that somehow, if we can, I hope it's not, we have to go out and look at a campus improvement program to see if there's a SMART goal, but maybe you guys do a readout with us and say, hey, here's what we've done with the data, right, and give us a holistic measure. And because I think, is this it? Like, are we gonna hear about this when we, the next time we hear about it is when it's in the consent agenda for us to sign the new contract? Or what happens next?
Yeah, what happens next is.
Would there be a follow-up form?
Well, I mean, yeah, you guys, I know you guys are working with campuses and everything, but is the next time we're gonna hear about this, when we either sign another contract or when we do the next survey, or how does this feed into some closed loop process for the board?
I think we can close the loop whenever we get the campus improvement plans completed, and then close the loop with the board in that situation.
Okay.
Can I have one more question?
Yes, Ms. Hassett.
I love the tie into the campus improvement plans. I love that part. But you said one actionable item. Is that one question or one general segment, like school climate or educating all students? What is the one actionable item?
It could be multiples. As a general rule, they were getting into one section, you know, and that tended to be where you would begin, would be a section. We found that to be the most manageable chunk. I don't want to overgeneralize, but I think
Section.
I can be general in saying that.
Area. Okay. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Mr. Colbeck, it's your show.
And you have 5 minutes.
All right, here we go. Well, thankfully, several of the items we're going to talk about we've discussed in previous meetings. And this first item is Apple Products residual value. And we've talked quite a bit about this topic, specifically during the March 5th board work session, the March 19th board meeting. We've established the need in our project plan and the budget for device refresh over a 5-year period that we were going to try to collect the residual value of our current Apple inventory. And also, when we presented that information, we just made some, I felt, very conservative assumptions based upon the amount of inventory, cost per unit, and in that 5-year presentation, we had forecasted $2,268,100 over a 5-year period. So we've been working with the purchasing department. We issued an RFP for the residual value service, and essentially what that is, it's really a 2-part piece. We're trying to obviously collect the most value of our current inventory, but with our large deployment schedule, we also need some additional hands on deck. So what we're trying to do is coordinate the collection services during our deployments so that we're actually getting the collection done, processing them, and getting the stuff out the door as fast as we can. One of the items on residual value is obviously the clock's ticking on what that residual is worth. So we want to be able to award a vendor and work very promptly with that vendor to collect our devices, really change the ownership of it and the liability of it to the awarded vendor. So our plan is to bring the results of that RFP back next week at the board meeting, and a couple pieces I want to touch on that. The timing on this, our large deployments are, I think, scheduled. Our first one's scheduled August 24th. So this is a real close timeline to the point that we award it and get it scheduled. And each of the companies that have responded, they have the calendar, so I believe that that's doable. The other piece to that is the dollars that we would receive through the residual value process. The current thinking is that money would actually go back in to the 2017 bond accounts that were used to purchase the technology we're deploying. Also, I want to point out that in the past, when we weren't looking specifically at Apple residual value, but we were looking at just general asset disposal, there was a valid concern about data destruction, cyber liability, and both of those elements as far as certificate of destruction and making sure that cyber liability and the insurance or the district being covered under that was a requirement of the RFP. That part is also included, or was a requirement. And then also, I just want to point out, I know the board had asked in the past about some sort of mechanism. Is there a way to offer something back to our community? That was something that the district did ask the vendors that were responding, so we did include that in the response, and we'll have more information next week when we bring it forward as an action item. So if you have questions specific to this.
Mr. Miller?
actually may be more of a Mr. Ball question
Sure.
than your question, because you talked about putting that money back into the 2017 bond, putting that money, the residuals back into that. Would we be using that as part of our commitment to pay off the devices within 5 years, or are we putting that back in to purchase more devices?
Those are great points, Ms. Prosnick. The commitment to pay off the devices in 5 years has already been set in place, and so that's going to happen regardless of the outcome of this.
Sooner.
Yeah, we believe that, of course, the accelerating the repayment schedule is dependent on when bonds are callable, and typically, except for the most recent issue that we just did, the earliest call provision we would have would be 5 years. But with regard to the use of the proceeds from this, since the vast majority of the devices that are being retired were acquired with 2008 bond funds that are tax exempt bond funds, the Internal Revenue Service requires that those funds go back into what they call the project fund. Well, the project fund that we have now is in fact the 2017 project fund. So that was a long-winded answer to say that I think the IRS rules would require that, and do require that, the money go back to purchasing assets out of the project fund.
I have a quick question. So is this iPads only, or does this include?
That's a good question. It's iPads and it's also MacBooks.
Okay.
Really, it's any serialized Apple hardware that we have in our inventory system that's being retired.
Do we have a number on that, approximate?
We do, and it's in board book.
Okay.
But it'll come forward as an action item for next
Okay,
week.
so the number's in our board book.
Correct.
Ms. Timish? And just have a question. For campuses that have done, I know that multiple campuses have gotten grants or received grants and they have the technology that's now outdated. If it was donated by another entity, is that included?
That's something that we're going to have to establish fairly soon. The projections that we used were basically items that were purchased, as Mike said, with 2008 bond or technology purchased. Now, we recognize that campuses in these other funds have purchased technology. So one of the items that we're going to have to do is really give the campuses a mechanism to say, do you want to also trade these things in? Not trade them in, but do you want to sell them for the residual value? Because I think the value would be there, and some of them are actually quite old. I mean, they're older than what we're trading in on iPads and iPad 4. If they're campus purchase devices, some of them are iPad 2s, iPad 3s, where they're not upgradable anymore, so the value would be down a little bit. But that's something that we need to get a communication out to the campuses and ask, do they want to be involved in this process?
And then the money, so if they had a grant at the campus and a computer lab, the money would come back to the campus, or does it just come back to the district, too hard to manage?
We would need to make a decision on that. It would be difficult to manage. That said, we do have that. We have the inventory in our system by the account code that it was purchased by. So I'm not saying it's impossible to credit it back. It would just be a lot of hunting it down and making sure that as it comes out of service, that we're essentially putting the money back in the right account, and that would be very laborious. You want to speak to that, Mike?
Yeah, I think one of the factors that will have to be considered in making that decision is the potential dollar value that could be returned to a campus under that scenario versus the risk that it's a pretty significant issue that we protect the tax exempt status of our bond issues, and I think the risk of if those records aren't to the satisfaction of the IRS in a future audit, does that risk does the benefit of returning a little money to the campus outweigh the risk that our documentation might not be totally acceptable? Does that make sense?
Makes
So
sense.
I think we'd have to.
Just curious, because I know several of our campuses have significant amount of
right, the next item, the non-instructional facilities wireless system. We discussed this during the June 4th board meeting as well. And just to make sure we're on the same page as far as what this is, because we're working on a wireless project right now specific to the campuses, which according to the E-rate program are instructional facilities. This particular item is tied to non-instructional facilities, and they're not eligible for E-rate funding, and it wasn't included in that initial proposal. But we still need to replace the wireless system. So what we've been doing is we're again working with purchasing on a procurement for this. This is essentially looking at picking up the access points and the licensing that we need for the instructional facilities, as well as one of the, I guess, limitations in the E-rate side of that is the licensing. You can only do that for a period of time. So we were, as purchasing is working on this, they're also looking at putting a structure in place that covers the licensing for the access points for the remainder of the years that we would project to use that. Okay, so what we're looking at doing is again bringing this forward as a action item next week, and also this is something that is included in the wireless project list of the 2017 bond, and we're in really good shape on that particular project, specifically with the approval of the E-rate project. So we definitely have the budget to do this project, and we bring this forward next week as an action item. Any questions?
Okay, Ms. Sells? Ms. Timish?
Okay, so when will we see, like, just an idea of what kind of amount of money are we looking for this?
That's in board book as well.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
How does this affect the administration building current construction?
It would include the switching and access points needed for this building going the remainder of the length that we need.
So they're not building it out now based on current, they're thinking ahead.
We're looking at what we need. Basically, our approach to this project is looking at what are our non-instructional facilities and what are our wireless needs in them, and this would include what we need for that. Yep.
Ms. Prosnick? Questions? Mr. Miller?
I just want to make it. Will this fix the issues that have been even complained about since 2010?
Non-instructional facilities, not schools.
Right, but even in non-instructional, there have been.
Sure.
I mean, I know at the campus level it's big time, but even in non-instructional, there have been concerns about bandwidth. So
it should help with that. The new wireless that we're putting in is the latest standard. The speed, the range on that is going to be much improved versus what we currently have now.
Okay.
So we are definitely expecting a better user experience. To say it's going to resolve every issue, I'm not going to go on the record and say that, because you have environmental issues in a building and the material types in a building. Sometimes that impacts wireless, but it should greatly improve our wireless.
yeah, like these laptops right here are sucking up bandwidth as we speak. If we paid per minute, it'd be crazy.
Ms. Sells? Oh, she started. I'm getting all confused now. Okay, just a quick question. Does this include the Timber Creek facility? Since they're going to be moving over here?
I'm going to have to get back to you, and I don't believe it does. I think we did not include Timber Creek.
Yeah, I hope not.
And I believe we also did not include, yep.
Okay, good. That's some good
But
news.
I'll verify that
Yeah.
to be sure, but I'm quite sure we did not include those.
All right, you're up again, Mr. Colbeck.
Okay. Okay, next item is cybersecurity products and services. This again is something that we discussed during the June 4th board meeting, and as you know, we've been doing a lot of work on cybersecurity products. We've been implementing this large Cisco network security solutions, and that project is coming to a close. And when we brought that project to the board, we also said we had some other security specific needs that weren't bond projects. So this particular item is really broken down into two different needs. One of those needs is to have a solution that gives us visibility into cloud solutions like Google Apps, Google Drive, Office 365, that while we have some native tools in those systems, we don't necessarily have the best tools to manage permissions or set governance or set, is data in a certain format, could be a social security number, it could be a birth date, where we can set policy and have visibility into what's shared inside of our organization and outside, and we can also restrict that. So as we use those tools more and more, we have to have better management tools to do that. So one of those items that would provide that is Cisco Cloud Lock. And when we showed the Cisco portfolio, that was at one item in the upper right-hand corner. I said, it's purely subscription. It's not a piece of hardware we're buying. We still have that need, but that would complement that entire security suite that we're already putting in. The other item that we'll be bringing forward is managed security services providers. And essentially what that is one of the challenges that really every organization, but specifically schools, has is that's a area or practice that is in high demand, that folks with those skills are typically quite expensive, and it's very difficult for a school district to fill positions for that. And also, the world of security does not stop when office hours are closed. So the idea on a managed security service provider is that what you'd end up doing is you'd be ingesting a lot of that log data that's available in these other systems, where we have more visibility into traffic patterns, risk, behaviors, where we could actually take action, make it actionable to change policy and be much more faster to respond in an incident than we are currently. And companies that provide managed security services, it's essentially in economies of scale, where they're hiring security experts in what's called a SOC, which is a security operations center, and they become an extension of the district for those particular services versus us having those folks on staff. So we've been working with purchasing on both of these to bring a recommendation forward during the next board meeting next week. And again, this is something that would be in our annual technology budget. We've been waiting to bring this thing forward. We really wanted some of the Cisco security pieces in place. Now we're to a point where we're ready to move on that. So we're planning on bringing both items back. This is one topic at this meeting, but they'll come back next week as two separate action items. Any questions?
Ms. Timish, Ms. Hassett.
You did say this was, the Cloud Lock does both inbound and outbound?
Yes.
So it covers us in both ways,
On both,
protecting our
and
students.
specifically what we're looking for with is both Microsoft Office 365, and we're also looking for it to use with our Google Apps installation.
President, Mr. Miller, Ms. Sells. I'm very excited about this, so
All right.
I'm
Good.
glad y'all are
Thank
pursuing
you.
it. You're up again.
Okay, this one is this is something that we've talked about a lot on audio-visual refresh, and just to refresh everybody's memory, one of the things that we ended up really going back and forth is what do we need to do from a procurement perspective with some of our audiovisual projects, specifically because they some of them require electrical work. So if you look at the definition of what's a public work project, we do need to have this engineering service to really do the electrical design work for some of those projects. In this past year, what we ended up doing, we did this really for just year one of the bond. And if you recall, that was awarded to Estes and McClure, and they went through, looked at our campuses, wrote up the spec sheet, and then we took that information to develop our job order contract. What this particular item is it's something we're going to be bringing forward again as an action item, but what we really need to do is lock down the engineering services through this bond project. This is a 5-year program, so this is essentially the engineering services only for the AV work in the bond from really years 2 through 5. Okay. And then the procurement of the stuff would come forward separately as a expenditure approval through, and there's another item on the agenda for next Monday specifically for the stuff that we haven't all ordered yet and some of the services for year one, and that comes through the job order contract. And so that'll be a second item on the agenda for next week. But this specific item is just for the engineering services, okay? And again, the funds for this would come out of the 2017 technology bond project.
That's it. I know you hate when I do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. How could we actually include in RFPs that they have to come to at least one of our schools and explain the electrical engineering process? I mean, how can we do this? And actually, this is real life learning. How can we force them to come to one school, one classroom, and explain the process that they're doing? And all of our contracts.
Well, I have no doubt that Estes McClure would come to any classroom
But then it would get them to think about actually coming more if we actually started putting these things to give our students real life learning. That's all and I'm just gonna be quiet next. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Hi, I'm the confused board member.
Okay.
Because I recall a conversation that you and I had at the June board meeting about the installation of these, and we were going to have 675 installed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so was that just the phase one? That's just year one, so we got the electrical whatevers from McClure for just year one?
Well, we ordered the 675
Right.
projectors, and our team is busy installing those.
Okay.
But there are instances that we need electrical work. So what we've been doing is putting in new projectors in spots where we already have a projector. But we're getting to a point where we're going to need to do perhaps a new installation, or we need electrical work done. That part was not awarded yet. In June, we brought back to the board that the job order contract that we had out, we denied it.
Right.
And we restructured it, hoping to get a structure with better pricing.
And that's in board book.
And that's in board book for next week. So in January, we brought Estes and McClure forward to do the engineering services. They walked our campuses for year one campuses, came up with a spec that we then used to create the job order contract. And this takes months to do
Right.
this. That spec was what was included in the job order contract that we denied at the June mostly for the services. That is now coming back forward next week as an action item, where we will then award the services for the things that we have not completed yet for year one. And then, just to keep thinking about this, okay, now if you approve the engineering services for years 2 through 5,
Right.
that would then give us the ability to work with Estes again to come back and do the specs for the year 2 classrooms, and we would then develop another job order contract specifically for year 2. So what we're really working on the job order contract side right now is catching up on year 1.
Right.
Okay?
Okay, so yeah, where are we on the installs? I know that's not part of this, but I mean, it is.
One thing on the installs, the projectors that we ordered were delayed in getting here. So our team in the last 2 weeks has been burning the midnight oil trying to get as many installed as possible. I'd have to get you an exact number, but we're going to keep plugging away and trying to knock those out as much as we can. But we are in this particular area, just to be as transparent as possible as far as bond projects. I feel this is one area that we got to get caught up on. And if you recall too, when we did the job order contract, the way we were trying to structure that was where we are going to try to do as much work as we can within the technology
Right.
department.
Yeah.
But if we get to a point where we just can't keep up, we need a mechanism that allows us to assign work. So the job order contract piece on Monday night will give us that mechanism that we haven't had up to this point to do that. So we actually have to catch up on year 1, and we got to get moving on year 2.
And just for me, we are not including in any of these engineering services, or perhaps we are, any of our campus refreshes. I'm assuming that that's included in the campus
Correct.
refresh.
The campus refreshes, the fit and finish on those
Right.
would have been included in the facility plan, or for the 20-year rental.
The engineering on the this, you can really view this as somewhat of a compliance issue because of that occupations code statute that's referenced in the board book item. This allows a stamped drawing, which is required by law, so that when we go and solicit a job order contract provider, we can say, here's our engineer drawing.
For
To
that
facilitate
particular,
to catch up.
Yeah.
help the
I got all
in-house
that part.
folks.
I just was very confused because it seems like we've talked about this like 150 times.
And that's part of the idea of bringing the engineering services for the remaining part of the bond through and be done with it, and we're not bringing this forward as frequently as we have been.
Mr. Miller?
Well, I'm gonna vote for this next week, but I gotta tell you, I'm so confused. This is one project that it's a small piece of the bond, but it's just confusing to me, right? I mean, I feel like I need a little flow chart and here's what we approved and that, right? If someone were to ask me what I'm voting for, honestly, I wouldn't be able to fairly do it. I'd have to say, you know what, you need to go talk to Brian. That's what I'm struggling with here. It's not that I'm questioning, do we need to do this? I am a bit confused though, because we had 7 bidders for cabling that we approved. Then we had another bid that we didn't approve, and then now we're doing engineering service for job. I mean, if I go back to August of last year, which you could probably surmise I have, and I look at the number of bids that we've had that had to do with cabling, wiring, engineering, things in the classroom, or the video cameras, and I'm going to put the video cameras in the same category, but I know we had some exceptions on that relative to architectural assignment. I couldn't explain to somebody who's doing what work and why, but you know what? I could do it with this addition over here, or I could probably do it with the wireless. This one, for some reason, and quite frankly, the more other trustees ask questions, the more confused I get. So, maybe throw it on the consent agenda next week and let's be done with it. But that's what I'm struggling with. It's not a criticism at all. It just really, I'm having a hard time being able to articulate it back. That's all.
Hopefully, Mr. Miller, I can lend a little bit of clarity to that. I think the differentiating issue here is electricity. Many of the things that the cameras and those sort of things, those are all low voltage installations. But and so the engineering work that was done on the year one projectors, as Brian said, were for locations that had already had a projector. What's now needed is design work to bring the electricity, and so that really is the distinction. Two things that require the use of the engineer. One is the $8,000 expenditure level, and we were running cables that didn't exist even in the year one package. The year two package, now we're talking about electricity. So that's really, I think, the distinguishing factor.
Okay, and thank you for that. And I think that makes sense. Even when we look back at the camera, we had cameras where we didn't need to do electrical, and then we had some runs where, based on upgraded technology or whatever, we had to run electrical as well, right? In some cases, and so it's a bit similar.
I'm not familiar with the specifics on the cameras, which ones required electricity and which ones
Well,
didn't.
I don't know. I know we looked at we didn't have to have the architect work on it. Doesn't mean we didn't have an engineer, but I thought there were some cameras based on their if we just went with like a current run on a camera, there was a dumb camera that didn't have high voltage, right? And now it's a 360 HD. I'm making this up. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we didn't have power in those.
I think most of those are low voltage.
Okay. So here we need to run electricity. It's different deal. Can't just have Tracy and Kevin and Mike go in and do it. It's gotta
No.
have people that are certified and so.
Christy can, but you
No.
Well,
Correct. I think another
I
piece
didn't
too
include
is
Jeff Crownover in that.
this, and Craig, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is also tied to this particular project, where we also, what I think adds to confusion is we have contracts that expire for cabling and services, or we're trying to procure it for things outside of a bond program, where you have the onesie twosies that we need to fill throughout the year. So those things come forward, you see them as consent or action, so, but it has the title of audiovisual product services, so I can see where it creates some confusion. But in this particular instance, it's tied specific to the AB for the 2017 bond project.
And so is this still considered phase one, or have we moved on to phase two now?
This would be the engineering services for years 2 through 5.
Okay, so.
Phase 3, phase 4, phase 5.
And we're trying to
so
do,
we're moving on, and it's 8,000 total, not 8,000 for each of those.
correct, it's that the total amount of electrical work is over $8,000. Correct.
We'll have that total in board.
Yeah, that, please
This is
understand,
just rewiring them, and then we get
that's the threshold in the statute at which point you have to have a stamped drawing. It's not, it has nothing to do with the amount of money we're gonna spend on that.
Ms. Timish? Okay, so, I did have a question, but now they've all gone. I guess just to be appreciative, the district is, I think the board would agree, you're being good stewards of district funds, utilizing funds in your department, but yet you're getting our facilities up to where they need to be to utilize the tools that the district and the board has approved. So, very appreciative
Thank you.
of that. So, I don't think there's any other questions. If there is, please hold them for the board meeting. Okay, the time is now, if there are no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 8:49.